In the world we share, let us choose to chase the real, the raw, and deeply authentic experience.
Talala, good girl.
Weaving our unique journey of connection and discovery together.
Greetings and welcome. I'm Anita Steubenraw, your host for the Authentic Rebel Speaker Series. I am coming to you live from a very small town in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California called Murphy's. I would love to know where in the world you are dialing in from. Please drop a line in the chat. Let us know wherever you're watching from. It is a privilege to guide you through this very unique experience that is the Authentic Rebel Speaker Series. And I know you don't need me or the news to tell you that we are living through times of turmoil. It's all around us. Escalating conflicts, climate emergencies, stark social and economic divides. And more than ever, we need ways to find connection instead of division, and to find direction instead of distraction. And that's why Jen Engevic and Heidi Miller created the Authentic Rebel platform to foster that which can be at once both incredibly fragile and infinitely powerful: hope. Our mission for today and tomorrow is simple: to create an environment where hope can be nurtured against all odds. On our journey together, we're going to hear voices from around the world share their unfiltered triumphs, struggles. And as you listen, I invite you to move beyond solace and inspiration. Stay open to what your heart wants to tell you. This is a chance to be part of a collective shift towards connection and compassion, all through the power of authenticity. Before we go too far, a little about me. I had a storied creative career at Apple, 13 years. I designed presentations that went in front of Steve Jobs, wrote speeches for executives, and I authored Apple's Credo. But really, it's what I'm doing now that ties so beautifully with the Authentic Rebel brand and the speaker series. I'm here in Murphy's, California, because I'm building an event and retreat space for audacious ideas and their people called the Land of Make and Believe. And I fund that development through the work of my creative agency, Cause Effect Creative, where I help people and brands rally hearts and minds around what fuels their soul. You can probably tell I love language and stories, but I promise that I too get nervous, obviously. But I persist because I deeply believe in the power of vision and stories to change the world. And I know our speakers do too. By way of getting to know me better and setting the context for these next 2 days, I want to share a story connected to the very first speech I ever gave. It was August 2019. It was Chicago. I am at my alma mater, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, to greet new students and their parents for new student orientation. I was going to be speaking in front of about 1,000 people. I was nervous. And not just because I was going to be in front of 1,000 people, but because I was going to be sharing parts of my Apple backstory that I had never shared publicly before. And it's not all rosy. I'm not going to go into that here. If you're curious, you can listen to episode 1 of my podcast, Hyperactive Imagination. There's the whole story there. But before I was on stage, I was backstage getting ready, and it started early in the morning and nonstop from when I arrived on site. Tours of the school, meeting the president, collaborating with the film crew. About 20 minutes before curtain, I'm sitting in a makeup chair with my makeup artist, Nancy, when she tells me she's an intuitive. I like intuitives. So she's standing there. She cocks her head to the side and she says, "There is a big presence with you. And it feels like a mountain and a medicine man." What Nancy doesn't know is that here at the Land of Make and Believe, our site, this place, is built around a really prominent rock formation, marbleized limestone. And that ever since I moved out here, I have been having these really powerful, energetic somatic experiences. So I might sound nuttier than squirrel poo, but I could feel it when she said that. When she steps out of the room, I could also start to feel some butterflies. And I decide to ask this energetic presence for help. What I wanted to say was something like, "May I borrow some medicine to do a good job?" But I swear I was halfway through the word borrow when it got slapped out of my brain. I had never had that experience before, so I gathered myself to try again. "May I have some medicine to do a good job?" I wanted to be of service to the audience. I wanted to be a conduit for meaning and purpose and joy, just like I want to be for you. I also didn't want to up, you know? Well, there was no bolt of lightning, but there was no brain slap either. So I'm thinking, well, maybe request received, possibly granted. I do notice that my butterflies have settled down a bit, and that felt good. I go on, it goes well. Fast forward to lunch later. I'm at a restaurant with my partner and my dad's friend. We'll call her Ava. I'm just meeting Ava for the very first time. I don't know her at all. And as we're eating and she starts to nod off at the table, like fall asleep, I don't know whether that's normal for her or not. But I don't say anything because my dad doesn't say anything either. When we leave, I notice my dad is having to prop her up to keep her upright and awake, but he also doesn't really seem concerned. So I figure he's got it. I'll go back to my room. I promise you, I was never more excited to put on PJs than I was in that moment. Speech giving can be a very intense experience. And especially for my very first speech, there was just months of buildup and anxiety. I was like never more ready to binge Netflix than that very moment. And I was literally lying down when I got the text message from my dad. Ava has taken all of her pills and all of my pills, and she's down at the hotel bar drinking. So I call my dad because this is not a text message conversation. And I find out that Ava sent a suicide note before we went to lunch. But my dad didn't take it seriously. But he should have, because he proceeds to tell me that she has attempted suicide before. And the only reason she's alive now is because somebody found her. She was in a coma for 3 days. My college crisis training kicks in. Clothes come back on. I go downstairs. As I come out of the elevator, I see Ava at the front desk with two very concerned and confused hotel employees. The contents of her purse are strewn all across the counter. And I walk up to her and I put my hand on her shoulder. And she turns to me and says, "Why are you here?" As in, why isn't my dad here? And I say, "I understand you've mixed pills with alcohol and written a note stating your intentions. Is that true?" She starts to cry and tells me I don't understand what her life is like. I say, "You're right. And I understand you've mixed pills with alcohol and written a note stating your intentions. Is that true?" She begs me to let her die. I say, I hear that you're hurting. And I also notice you wrote a note. I understand you mixed pills with alcohol. Is that true? She nods. So I signal to the concierge behind the desk to pick up the phone as I say, here's what's going to happen now. We're going to call an ambulance. They're going to come, take you to the hospital, get you taken care of. Likely you're going to be under a mandatory 72-hour hold. When the ambulance arrives, she asks me to go with her, so I do. Once we get there, she gets checked in. She's in the hands of people much more capable than me. It was time to go. And it wasn't until I got back to the hotel room that it hit me. I thought I was asking for the medicine to do a good job on stage. No. It was for me to be there for her in that moment. Just me. Just my authentic self. One tiny spark of light in the darkest possible time. A few months later, she sent me a thank you. Dear Anita, your haloed face appeared to me like a guardian angel in a moment of most fervent need. Thank you for saving me. May you always have a guardian angel of your own watching over your shoulder and never need it. Now, I share this not to make myself out of some kind of savior, but because there is a point I want to make in the biggest, boldest, brightest colors imaginable. I have the medicine, yes. So do our speakers, and so do you. That's what these next 2 days are all about. Are you ready? Please allow me to kick things off by welcoming our very first speaker. Alexandra Bernard Simmons is the founder and CEO of Think Like a Boss. Alexandra is an acclaimed author, entertainer, and entrepreneur with a journey that intersects major networks like MTV, VH1, BET, and A&E, and roles in the Step Up series. She's shared stages with legends like Bobby Brown and worked with stars like French Montana. She inspires many through her TV show, podcast, and Think Like a Boss book tour, advocating for women to own their worlds like bosses and embracing their power to transform the world. Please join me in welcoming the dynamic Alexandra Bernard Simmons.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction, Anita. And thank you so much for that story. We never know who we're going to meet that's going to change our lives. And you changed that woman's life. And for you to start with a story like that is so authentically you. So thank you. I appreciate you. And hello, everyone out there. I saw in the chat that we are located all over the nation. And I love that. I love that. We are here together to learn, to speak, to inspire, to empower, and put some glitter on it. Okay. So like they said, my name is Alexandra Bernard Simmons, founder and CEO of Think Like a Boss. And Think Like a Boss is an international award-winning women empowerment and community movement. And today I want to speak about the authentic rebel, right? So when Jen reached out to me, I'm just like, authentic rebel, what does that really mean? I mean, I know it's me, right? I know she found the right person, but still, when we really think about the word authentic, what does that mean? So when I looked it up, it said of undisputed origin, to be genuine. And I felt that, like I felt that in my spirit. I'm like, yeah. And then rebel, what does rebel mean? A person who rises in opposition or armed resistance against an established government. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of me too, right? That's kind of me too. So those two things together, I'm like, I really love the premise of this whole conference. So I'm going to speak about the importance of being an authentic rebel. Okay? And that's little me in the corner, right? Because everything actually starts at that age. I know it doesn't feel like it, but believe it or not, your most authentic self is buried under everyone's expectations of you. When you are a child, you're already operating off of genius level. So has anyone ever told you you couldn't do something? But the bad part is, did you believe them? So what happened is we come here as mini geniuses, and over time we get so many no's. You can't do that. Please don't do that. That's not safe. You can't jump from the couch to the table. You can't do this. You can't do that. You get domesticated. And sorry, I know some people, love school and think school is great, but that's the number one place of our domestication. When they take away our genius, who were you before they told you who you're supposed to be? That's always the question. I'm a teacher at heart, so I always have homework for you guys. So the first thing I want you to do, or classwork rather, I want you to write down or put it in the chat who some of your heroes are. Because we know who we are based on who our heroes are. And when I say heroes, I want you to think back to little you and the favorite cartoon that you used to watch. If your favorite hero was the Power Rangers, the Red Ranger in general, why is that? I want you to think about that, right? If you think about the Red Ranger, that was the leader, right? That was the leader of the group of the Power Rangers. So is it because you had qualities of a leader that wanted to come out when you were operating in your genius? Again, when we're children, we know who we are. We know what we like. We know how to follow our joy. But sometimes adulthood is where dreams go to die. And how do we pull our dreams back and close to us? Oh, I'm seeing something in the chat. Sherlock Holmes. Because of his extreme observations and power of deduction. I like that. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anybody else want to share? One of mine, oh my God, She-Ra. Do you guys remember She-Ra? Please, everybody knows He-Man. We know everybody knows He-Man. But do you guys remember She-Ra? She-Ra is actually He-Man's little sister. She used to kick butt in heels, and she used to fly a unicorn, honey. Okay? That to me as a child, I'm like, oh no. She-Ra, she got it. She got it together. And she was so morally sound. Wonder Woman, that's another good one. Another one who's morally sound. Morally sound. So I want you guys to just sit back and really think about that. And if you're having a problem even coming up with some of your heroes, why is that? Why? Why did you forget? It's very important for us, especially when we share our stories, we remind people of their power. And sometimes that's the job of ours when we want to share our light with others. It's really shining a light to who they were. The privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are meant to be. That was always my main goal in life. I never wanted to be the person that went with the grain, right? So that's where the rebellious part came to. So for me, growing up in a Caribbean household, you had two options, well, three: doctor, nurse, or engineer. And I didn't want to be any of those things. As cool as they may be, as much money as they can make, that wasn't for me. Even for me, I went to work in tech. I'm an academic. I love learning. I love complex ideology. And I made great money in tech, but I left. I remember making $180,000 before I was 30 years old. And I'm like, that's cute, but my soul is dying. So I think I'm going to exit stage right. And what I mean by exit stage right, I was a dancer. I'm a dancer. I'm a choreographer. I'm a creator. I'm an innovator. And during that time was death by cubicle for me. Death by cubicle. I'm going to copyright that because that's going to be one of my books. So do not take it. But I know some of you guys understand what death by cubicle is, right? So for me, taking the big risk of staying true to my authentic self and rebelling against the society and the status quo. Like, who leaves a job making $180,000 to go make $30,000? Who does that? The rebels of the world. That's who. That's who. And the pictures here is everything that came from me showing up and being who I am. From different magazine covers to traveling the world to the podcast show to sitting down with people like Beyonce's mom and interviewing them to having my own TV show, being recognized around the state in newspapers, being a university professor at Montclair State University, being a best-selling author, and going to be one of the first Black-owned CEOs for a supermarket franchise. That's because I bet on myself. And I chose my authentic self, my leadership, my She-Ra ways, right? Riding my unicorn, saving the day, doing events here, speaking life into someone here, doing Reiki on someone here, going into homeless shelters, making sure the women there aren't left behind, showing my people how to be financially sound, right? Because at the end of the day, my light is also allowing God to use me, okay? And as a result, I remind you of the God in you. So, integrity is the only path you can take where you'll never get lost. Sometimes integrity is like forgotten in 2024, right? I don't know if it's like social media, right? Or is it the TV shows that we watch? But integrity is what we need to keep our souls pure in a world that's trying to taint it. I remember when I was coming up in my think like a boss, life. And as a choreographer, like I said, I was a dancer. I received a great opportunity. What people think is a great opportunity, right? It's all about perspective. I got an opportunity to go on a reality TV show. And again, being one of the sought out choreographers in the New York City area, it kind of fit their narrative for having someone of my expertise on their show. I'm not going to say the show, but I do have the logo down there, so that's who kind of produced the show. But the thing about integrity, right? When I looked at some of the content on that channel and the way they portrayed women, but especially women of color, when I would watch these shows and I would see women pinned against each other, throwing drinks in each other's faces, arguing and doing all types of things that I would never do. How can a leader of a woman empowerment movement go on a show that degrades women? It didn't fit my integrity, and it did not fit who I was. So I said no. Everybody was like, oh my God, how could you say no to being on TV? Honey, my spirit is more important than popularity. And I will always choose purpose over popularity. And don't get me wrong, I was stressed. After I made the decision, I was a little stressed. I was like, oh my God, I just turned down a television show. Everybody on that show became a celebrity and made money. And I'm like, But I do remember a little bit after that, I had an engagement. And it was a show, actually. It was a gig with Alec Baldwin. And I was on set with his team and a few people. And I remember one thing about me, which is very important, I treat everybody with reverence. Everybody. I don't care what your job title is. You know how some people now try to ask your job title just to see what kind of respect they're going to give you moving forward. Yeah, I don't do that. I will speak to the janitor the same way I speak to the person at the front desk, the same way I speak to Alec Baldwin, right? Everyone is going to get my respect. And in that moment, I remember that I spoke to this girl. We spoke about zodiacs, honey. We were talking about all the things, just having a great time and having beautiful conversation because, again, you never know who you're going to meet that's going to change your life. And I remember during that time, I wanted to make sure that I had enough money in my business to do these huge community initiatives that I wanted to execute. And I'm like, my capital is a little low, again, leaving 180, going to 30,000, maybe going up to 60, 70,000. It still wasn't that 180. But then she called me back. She was like, Alexandra, I met you on this set. Your spirit is just so beautiful. And when this came across my desk, I was like, I want to give this opportunity to you. And this was the opportunity. His paw, nails.
Things on a dog.
Whiskers.
Things on a cat.
Yes. Don't hit me too hard. They fill me with candy, so when I
Things
break...
Things a pinata might say.
Yes. Your head, your 5 o'clock beard.
Things on a face. Things on...
Your legs, your armpits.
Parts of a man.
Your...
Parts of a person. Body parts.
Your 5 o'clock...
Things you shake.
Yes. Because I want to swim. Because I want to sunbathe.
Why I go to the beach.
Yes. Bread, lettuce, tomato.
Things that make up a sandwich.
Yes. Newspaper, panda.
Things that are black and white.
Yes! Yes, so I was one of the first season winners, contestants on the $100,000 Pyramid with Michael Strahan on ABC. And I made $68,000 in 30 minutes. And it was just such a beautiful opportunity. And the thing about that was Michael Strahan asked, what are you going to do with the money if you win? And the first thing I said is, I'm going to give it back to my community. And that's exactly what I did. And that's why I put this quote here. What we know matters more. What we know matters, but who we are matters more, by my favorite Brene Brown, right? It's, again, you have to show up and be the light wherever you are. You shouldn't pick and choose when you're going to treat someone with reverence or not, right? Everyone deserves your respect. Oh, of course, unless they try you, that's a different thing. But just remember, you never know who you're going to meet that is going to change your life. So show up as love and show up as light. But that was such an amazing experience. And even from there, from the $100,000 Pyramid, I met someone else that got me back on the screen to do something. So again, just be your authentic self wherever you are. My next question to you is, how are you showing yourself love? Right? How are you showing yourself love? We have to understand, to fall in love with yourself is the first secret to authenticity. You really have to love who you are as a person. You have to understand that everything that you are is divinely perfect. Divinely perfect. We try to change ourselves to fit the narrative of social media. We try to change ourselves to fit the narrative of television, right? But we have to understand that this comparison that we're doing is actually the thief of our joy. So I need you to go back into the way that you loved yourself when you were a little child. Children have radical self-confidence. It's radical. I can run really, really fast. Okay, Jimmy, I'm sure you can. But do you understand Jimmy really believes that? That's the type of rebellious confidence that we need. And I say rebellious because it's radical in a time like this when it's making it seem like we're not good enough. And let me tell you something. You have everything you need to make your dreams come true. You have everything you need to fulfill your purpose. All the dreams that you have, the universe wouldn't give it to you if you did not have all the tools that you need already. It is up to you to show up authentic, with integrity, with morals, as the light, and be rebellious enough to break the rules. Be rebellious enough to break the rules. Your story does not have to look like everyone's story. Your journey does not have to look like everyone's journey. You are the author of your own book. You are the main character, honey. Pick up the pen and write your own damn story. It is time for you to be your own authentic rebel. My name is Alexandra Bernard Simmons, founder of Think Like a Boss, and I approve this message. Thank you, guys.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Alexandra. And you're bringing your She-Ra energy to everything that we're doing today and setting such a beautiful tone. I certainly know I want to learn more about you. You're up to some interesting things. In our quest for authenticity, we sometimes face a massive fork in the road, one that can make or break our future. And that was the case for our next speaker, my friend Hector Garcia, president of MBN Creative. And from the heart of Southern California, Hector has risen as a bright light in the brand and print industry, especially for food and beverage. His journey from a challenging upbringing in Los Angeles to founding an award-winning agency is a testament to his resilience and innovation. Beyond his professional success, Hector's dedication to community advocacy underscores his commitment to making a difference. Today, Hector will share a defining moment of his life, a crossroad that tested his values and determination. Please join me in welcoming Hector Garcia.
You look amazing. What an amazing story, Alexandra. Just incredible. So I want to thank everybody that joined. I know some of my peeps are out there, and I want to say good afternoon and good evening to everybody who joined across the states. And I want to ask everybody if they've ever been. I'm going to kind of dial this down a little bit because this is an intimate story that's never been told to the public, to an audience. I've only shared this with my closest, family, and so I want to ask if you've ever been around the wrong person in the wrong place at the exact right time. And I want you to think about that and sit with that for a minute. Have you ever been around the wrong person at the wrong place at the right time? And so for me, I'm gonna go back to when I was 3 years old. I was a little boy, and I remember witnessing my brother. He was only 12. My only brother, my older brother. He got abused so bad. He got it was incredible. I was 3. I witnessed this. I witnessed him being, it was just overwhelming, but I was 3. It was a terrible thing. I It was at the hands of my father, who I loved at 3. I want to take you back to when I was 11 years old. I walked out the kitchen door of my house. It was about 11 o'clock at night. It was cold. It was dark. I got on my knees and I prayed to God that he would take my mom. Like, take my mom. It's time. I can't take her anymore. Please, just take her. I prayed. When I was 19, I thought everything was okay. I kind of got through life, got through the rough household. I was able to, get a job that I loved doing. I was always into art. That was kind of my escape. That was my why. Like I was always into drawing and painting, won all the accolades in high school, got a job right out of high school. And had so many friends in the neighborhood, had a nice car, nice job, like everything was going just right. Had me a girl. And all of a sudden, my brother gets out of prison. He was doing a 7-year stint for manslaughter. As the story goes, he was down the street one night. Guy from another neighborhood was there. A fight ensued. My brother broke a bottle on a curb and he stuck it in his neck over a bag of weed. That was my reality. That was what happened. He's fresh out of doing 7 years. He comes home. He is meaner and more dominant than I've ever seen him. He's running the streets. And when I say running the streets, he's running everybody that's on the streets in the neighborhood. He's making things happen. He's pushing buttons. And one night, I'm getting myself ready. I'm ironing my clothes. I'm getting ready to go hang out with my buddies. There's a house party down the street. And my brother walks in. He goes, "Hey, bro." He goes, "I might need you to come hang out with me tonight." And I was like, "Well, I got something to do." He goes, "No, you don't understand. Something might go down. I need you to go hang with me." And I go, "I'm going to be at this party." So I go to the party. My buddies pick me up. We go to the party down the street. We're having a good time. And guess who shows up? My brother. He says, "Let's go now." And I go. What I've always done. My big brother. He got hurt people, hurt people. He hurt me when I was young. I learned that when he said, "Let's go," I don't question it. Something bad's going to happen. I ended up going with the wrong person to the wrong place at the right time. Now, this was something out of a De Niro movie. Like, this was a scene. It was foggy. It was cold. There was all these gangsters around. You could see the street lamps. There was so much testosterone. You could feel it. There was drugs. There was alcohol. A fight broke out. And then another fight broke out. And another fight. And people were jumping in. And things were a lot of violence going on. And in the midst of that, a gun went off. It went off right here, right next to my ear. Like it just went off and time stopped for me. At that moment, the ring in my ear was so loud, I couldn't hear anything here except this ring. I could feel the gunpowder, the warmth of it all over my ear and my face. It was literally here. I saw someone 20 yards out, grab their abdomen, and fall to the ground. All of a sudden, everything sped up. My brother ordered somebody to take me and him to somewhere, and everyone scattered. I end up at this house. It's like 2 a.m. And my brother says, hey, I'm bouncing. I'm going out of state. I'm going to be on the run. I'm not going to jail again. I'm not going to prison again. He goes, you need to go home. You take him home. And he gave me the rundown. He says, he goes, when you get home, he goes, the cops will probably be at the house and you're going to jail, bro. And here's what you do. And he says, when they arrest you, you're not saying anything, first of all. You weren't there. Here's your alibi. And that's that. So when you go to the county, it's like, don't talk to the black dudes, don't talk to the white dudes. You can talk to the Chicanos and you'll be all right. And I'm just like, man, I have never, ever been in trouble before. Like I said, I had a good job doing what I love to do. I was a designer, and 2 years in, and so for this to happen, my head's spinning. I'm like, what is going on? So this gangster drops me off at my house. My mom and dad, oh, the look on their face, they were so worried. They said, did you do anything? I said, no, I did nothing. I was there, but I did nothing. They go, well, the police want to talk to you. I'm like, all right. So I go to the police station, and my parents are waiting in the lobby. And it started out as good cop. And back then, they had this giant recorder, and they said, hey, we're Sergeant so-and-so, and they press this big button. We're going to, we want to know what happened, We know you were there. There's all these people we already interviewed, and, tell us what happened. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I had just turned 19. I was probably 5'5", 125 pounds, soaking wet. This detective was being nice to me. As soon as I said, I don't know what's going on. I wasn't there. Slams that thing shut. Next thing you know, spit is in my face. I am just covered. I'm being yelled at. But I ain't gonna snitch. You don't snitch when you're from the hood. You just don't. Because if you do, you guys know what happens. Plus, I wouldn't do that to my brother. It wasn't in my DNA. So they book me, and they say, all right, tough guy. You weren't there, huh? Okay. Well, we're going to book you on murder one. You can go and give your mom a call. I go, she's not in the lab. No, we sent her home a couple hours ago. Like, when I had to make that called, and my mom picks up the phone, and she says, is it okay to come pick you up, mijo? And my heart just dropped, because I was like, no, Ma, they booked me on murder one. Her heart sank, my heart sank. Didn't know, it was just, I didn't know what was going on. I get booked, I get sent to the local jail, then I get sent to the county jail. And as soon as I walk in there, they strip you naked, they hose you down, they throw powder on you. You're in front of a bunch of men. I'm probably the littlest, youngest dude there, and these big, massive guys like, what are you in here for? And I'm like, murder one. They're like, that's 25 to life, bro. And I'm just like, everything changed for me. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Thinking back, what did my brother say about this place? All right, hang out with the Chicanos. All right, cool. They'll be all right. After I'm there for, I don't know, a day or so, we're shackled. We get into this part of the jail where there's cells, and I'm shackled with like 20 other men. And these security guards are giants. They're big, intimidating figures. And as we're going from one room to another, I look to my right, and there's I glance, and happens to be a Chicano, and he, in front of the cops, he grabs the bars and he goes, "Who the fuck are you looking at?" He's like, "I'll fucking kill you." And I'm just like, whoa, my head is like, I don't know what to do. I get put in this one room for my last day and a half at the county jail. And when the doors open up, I walk in, there's like 400 beds in there, almost all filled. And I hear my name, Hector. And I'm like, who the hell would know me here? And kind of way in the back, there's these 4 or 5 guys, and they're hanging, come here, homie. And I'm like, who is that? And they say, hey, man. And then I recognize, I'm like, oh, that's some guy from the neighborhood. That's his older brother. And he's like, hey, man, come over here. What are you doing here? I told him, I'm like, hey, man. He goes, do you need anything? He goes, can I get you a bed? He goes, we're going to get you a bed right here. Doesn't have a mattress yet, but we'll take care of that. So I go, man, I need a shower. He goes, all right, I got you, man. Here's a towel. Here's some slippers. I went and took my shower. I came back. He gave me a candy bar. It was like, okay. I'm like, all right. I could, I feel okay. But in that day and a half, everything was jumping off. Mexican, blacks were just like at each other. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like it was high tension. And so a day and a half goes by, and the guard calls me. And he calls my name, and I start walking to the booth. And just as I'm making my way, this black dude makes a beeline for, I could see him. He's just walking fast. And he comes at me and he bumps me. And he goes, you're lucky, motherfucker. I was getting ready to stick you. I'm like, holy shit, this is nuts. Like, whew, I'm right here by the cop. He's gonna let me out. So I go there, and he goes, put your wristband in the window. So I do, and he goes, murder one? He goes, you're gonna have to go back in there. And I'm just like, no, I can't do that. I mean, I can't show fear, I can't show weakness, but in my head, I'm like, I'm a dead man. And he makes some phone calls. He confirms that, yeah, you're getting out. So they let me out. They stole my clothes in there, so I'm wearing a paper shirt and paper pants. And as I'm exiting, I see my mom and dad, and they're in the car. And it's nighttime, and I'm just like, everything's gonna go back to normal. Like, this is okay. So I, familiar faces. I'm like, I didn't do anything. This is all good. Get in the car. My dad goes, lay down in the back seat. My mom's crying. She goes, Hector. She says, your clothes are in the trunk. We're going up north. I'm like, why? She says, the neighbors, the person that your brother killed has 4 brothers. And they are all, the word on the street is, if they can't catch your brother, they're going to kill you. And if you love your son, get him out of here. That nighttime drive seemed like the longest on earth. I mean, I don't even think we spoke much, and I was like so depressed. Like I said, I went into the county jail, $125. I came out of $120. I was depressed. I was like, how did I get myself in this situation? When I get out, I'm going to save 10 grand because I need to get a lawyer so that this never happens. So I never have to spend another day in there. I mean, I escaped by the skin of my teeth. It was so narrow. So many things happened. On that drive up north, we end up at my uncle's house, and they have a little cot there for me with a blanket. I put my clothes in there. My mom and dad leave right away. I probably had to go to work the next day, and I get wakened like at 4 in the morning. Get up. You're going to work. Okay. I get my stuff and boom, I'm off in the truck, and there's a few of us, a couple of my cousins and me get dropped off at this field. And the next thing you know, I am on a tomato picking machine at the break of dawn till the end of the day. That's like 12 hours of dirt flying in your face. All this stuff just happened. I'm trying to process stuff. I'm getting yelled at on this tomato machine because I don't know the drill. So I just got to suck it up and do it. And I do that for a few weeks. And that was an incredible change in my life. That was that fork you're talking about, Anita, that everything changed for me. It took me several months of trying to find work that I loved in Northern California. It wasn't happening for me. So little by little, I made my way back to Southern California. And what I had to do to get my first apartment was work a full-time job. Got a design job, full-time, 8 to 5. I worked for an aerospace company, a subcontractor, 4 hours every night from 8 to midnight. Every Saturday and Sunday, I was airbrushing t-shirts at the mall just so that I could have an apartment with a lawn chair as furniture, just to kind of get my life back together again. And the journey has been a long one. I felt like I lost so much of my life. I lost my car, my girl, my friends. I didn't know who I could trust or not trust. There's a couple of guys like, dude, don't come around here. You can't come around. Your people are looking for you. I mean, that happened. It took some years. I got back. I had to work so hard, and I had to reinvent myself. I had to create another person that I thought would be attractive to an employer. And I worked hard, but after working at different agencies, and I got into technology, I got into the Mac early. I started doing these things and kind of rose through the ranks and started managing a lot of people. I wasn't my authentic self. Like I just wasn't. And 25 years ago, I quit a well-paying job with security, and I had a mortgage payment, 2 small children, a wife staying at home, a couple of car payments, and I made the decision over a weekend to start my own business. And because I was hustling for so many years, weekends and evenings, it wasn't a tremendous risk. I wasn't just risking everything for that, but it paid off. I've had to reinvent myself. I've had to take that little kid that was broken, the little kid that was hyper aware, the little kid that was hyper vigilant, and recreate myself. I had to be better. I knew I could be better. I knew if I wanted to live a better life, I had to be a better person. I was fortunate to meet my wife, beautiful woman. We've raised 2 children, and that's one of the biggest things that the biggest most paramount things that ever happened to me, because she was just an amazing person, and she accepted me as I was, exactly where I was, and yeah, I owe her a ton. I have changed who I am. I am called Hector the Connector. I did not name myself that. There's other people have named me that. I just started connecting with people. I started loving on people. I started changing who I was. I got rid of that old person that I was. There's still a little bit of that in me, and I'm still a work in progress. I have gone to therapy. I've gone to counseling. I have put the work in. I listened to some incredible podcasts, and I educate myself, and I'm very proud of what, from where I came to where I'm at now, it's been leaps and bounds, and I'm truly blessed. Like, I've got a wonderful family. I live in a wonderful neighborhood, in a nice home. I've got an amazing staff. I do work for, some celebrities like Warren G. I do some work with Fortune 100 clients, and I just I like Alexander says, I treat everybody the same, man. I have had to do some crazy stuff. I've had obstacles, and there's still going to be more obstacles. But I treat everybody the same, whether it's somebody at the grocery store, whether it's somebody who sold the largest brand in U.S. history, he lives on the top of the hill in Beverly Hills. That dude and I, it's all about hugs and handshakes, and I treat him exactly the same. So that's my journey, and I uh, I practice gratitude every morning. I journal. I meditate. Um, I like to say that I bring the weather wherever I go. Like for my office, like when I journal, a journal entry, pretty much every time I journal, one piece is um, that I'm bringing the weather. And the weather's 75 degrees with a couple little puffy clouds, a slight ocean breeze. And that's how I bring it because I want my people to feel that. I feel it. If I can feel it, they can feel it in person. I'm going to go ahead and share my contact information if anybody would like to reach out and say hello.
Thank you so much, Hector. I think folks are going to understand why Hector is one of my favorite people. And when he says he brings the weather with him, he's not lying. He really does. It's a beautiful thing. So
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. There's a QR code. Leave it up for a second, and then I'll go ahead and take it down. But thank you so much, Anita, and thank everybody for being here. Appreciate you guys.
All right, Alona Kearney. Sometimes a voice within us demands we take a stand and drive change, even as underdogs. Alona Kearney embodies this call to action. From her early days advocating unity in high school to her service in the Military Intelligence Battalion as a single mother, Alona has consistently turned adversity into opportunity. Her journey extends from military service to civic engagement, authoring books, founding a nonprofit to educate youth on legislative processes, and advocating for education funding before the Senate. Now, aiming to run for Washington State Governor in 2024, Alona stands ready to lead with a commitment to unity, resilience, and the well-being of all citizens. Please join me in welcoming a leader of change, Alona Kearney.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ilona Kearney, and I'm a forgiveness coach as well as I'm running for governor here in Washington State. So if you know anyone this way, get the word out. And you can always anyone in the United States can donate or join the campaign as well. But today I'm going to talk about forgiveness. So, how I became a rebel that I am is it was through my journey and path of forgiveness. So, growing up, I grew up in and out of the hospital for suicide and depression, and the doctors would say that I was the deepest depression, that I would be living my life as a zombie, that which is heavily medicated, that I wasn't going to be able to function without it, let alone be able to function doing schoolwork. And in my head, when I would be on all of those medications, the only thing that I could ever think of is when I grow up, I'm going to get out on my own, do the things that I want to do, like these dreams that I had in my head of like how a family life should be or what success should look like for me, and not repeating those same things that I saw in my family life of growing up. But I I came across when I got out and I had my kid. I joined the military. And fast forward, when I got out the military, I had my kids. And when I started doing things with my kids, everyone's thing is that you're being overprotective because when you've gone through a lot, whether it's abuse, sexual abuse as a child, when you have your kids, people feel that you're being overprotective. But I saw that what I was doing with my children was something different, which was I was teaching them and empowering them to be able to say no. There's respect of adults, but then there's times when adults cross the line and you have a right to say no and have a right to speak up for yourself and those things. So when I was doing those exercises, I started to realize that I was actually retraining my thinking and myself and how I saw myself in the world and what were my rights and how I was afraid to say no and speak up for myself because I didn't feel empowered to do that. And so that's where my book comes in. It's called Purely Unadulterated Me by Love Always. And in the book, I start to journal. Like I was the person that I would go from one to 100 in a split second and be ready to fight because someone could trigger me and I feel like I'm being violated. So since I didn't know how to be assertive and and take back my power, I would just fight. And I didn't, and for my kids, it would be like, yes, someone just violated us, but mom, we're scared because you might go to jail. And I started on my whole journey through my book, and I shared these also. So in my book, I start from present, past, future. So in the present, what I did was I would write down all of my situations, my triggers, whatever. It could be a situation that happened that day that I went off on, or that week, or anything that I know that just bothers me. Sometimes I would be in a situation where everybody could be happy and having fun, and then out of nowhere I would just feel sad or angry, and I didn't know why because nobody did anything, but I just didn't know why. So another method I would use was called five senses. I would What are the five senses that I'm feeling right now? So that, like, one instance, it would be the sweat through my skin. I could feel it beating through, and it seemed like I smelled the scent of pine when pine wasn't around. So I will write down all these five senses, and then I'll sit there and try to think of a time in my childhood or in the past when I remember having those same five senses triggered. And then I will write about that. And another exercise also is, if you're not triggered and you can't think of anything right now, I just do the egg. And what the egg is, you draw a big oval, and in the oval, you're filling in cracks. And each crack is going to be, you know, you'll write a word in there that represents your story. So, it could be a happy childhood memory. If it's happy, you might want to color that block yellow, whatever your color code is you want to. If it's sad, blue. If it's anger, red. Whatever it is, and then you step back and you look at this egg and you see what is the main color theme of the overarching of how you feel about life. If it's mostly blue or red, then you know that there are some things that you really need to dig in and dig out. Then from there, I take those exercises and I apply them to my past. And that's what I wrote about in my book. In my past chapter is whatever those senses that were connected to that, or whatever story of memory it came up, I wrote about that. And when I wrote about it, I did a self-assessment. And in my self-assessment, it was mostly, to write what is the subliminal message that I learned or was taught in life. And one of mine was, when I speak up for myself, I am called a liar, or people see me as one. And how that came about was when I was sexually violated and I went and told an adult, the first thing out the adult mouth was, no, they didn't. What, for real? And so when their immediate reaction might not have been calling me a liar, they were shocked and caught off guard. But for me as a child to hear that made me feel like they thought of me as a liar. So that's what I, took with me into adulthood was don't speak up, don't say anything, just mind your business. Or maybe it didn't happen the way I think that it happened. So my in the past, you're just writing out all the assessments that you do. And then the future part of my book, I wrote about my future. So my future is rewriting and retraining the way I think and the way I see myself and others in the world. So it's retraining those five senses. And the way I retrain the five senses is if, like, say, for instance, I'm going to just use orange or pine. If that was the sense that was negatively triggered, then I would get some pine, and whenever I'm having a good memory or a good thing happening to me, I'll sniff that pine because now I want to connect the scent of pine to something positive. Or I could just create a whole new mnemonic of probably just grabbing an orange, and when I'm having a good time, smell orange. And then when I have a negative experience, sniff something orange because it'll bring me back to a happy experience. And so that's one way. And then the other was learning how to set boundaries. Um, First of all, forgiveness for me was always never the whole of forgive and forget, or you're ever going to get rid of those memories or those emotions that they're never going to come back up. They do, but it's how do we deal with situations that bring on those, or people bringing something back to memory because they're doing that same exact thing. So the way I describe forgiveness is as if I buy a house and I don't like the paint on the wall, I'm going to change the color. I have to accept that it's there. And that's what I used to always hate when people say you have to accept it. And I was like, no, I don't. But yes, it happened. It's in the past. You can't change it. What you can change is whether you approve or disapprove when you move forward. So you want to change um that. I would want to change that paint. So I either change it myself or hire somebody else to do it. But if as long as you leave it there, as long as you allow people keep doing the same things and never be assertive or give them consequences to let them know that they are violating you, then they're going to think that it's okay. So when we're triggered, it's because we feel like we're being re-violated because people don't know what our boundaries are because we have not set them. So boundaries is one. And the other is changing the old mindset by writing new affirmations. So instead of saying, when I speak up for myself, I'm called a liar, or someone thinks of me as that, my new affirmation, I will rewrite it as, when I speak up for myself, I advocate for others who are afraid to share their story. And that empowers me and lets me know that I'm advocating and empowering others. So whenever situations happen, instead of feeling inferior and feeling like do the fight or flight situation, I would say that affirmation to myself and reassure myself that I am standing up for others when I do this. And as time went along, I started to notice that I was no longer suicidal. Whenever situations happened or times got tough, I became someone who could stand up for myself, speak up for others, and also go through whatever I need to go through just to get things done. And when we learn to forgive, when they say forgiveness is for you and not for the others, it's really for you, because all these exercises was how we work on ourselves. And I've learned that I end up drawing different outcomes and having different situations happen to me that I would not have if I were on the unforgiveness side and reacting, as opposed to learning how to become responsive. Like I said, my takeaways are: present, write down your triggers; past, assess the subliminal messages; present, set boundaries and write affirmations. And here's my information if you want to get in touch with me. If you want to get in touch with me or purchase my book, most of these are on my Facebook page, which is the lovealways.forgiving handle. And if you want to contact me, there's my email, ilonakearney@yahoo.com. And that's my phone number. And if you want anything to do with my campaign from wherever you are, which is removing labels and the stereotypes, my website is peoplebeforeparty.com, and all of my information is on there as well.
Thank you so much, Ilona. In the wake of adversity, some find their true calling. Kaylee Rose turned her struggle with severe bullying into a mission to empower others through music. A Billboard charting artist, her music resonates on top 40 radio and beyond. Yet it's her work offstage that truly amplifies her impact. Through her Music with a Message school assembly program, Kaylee brings healing and confidence directly to schools, empowering students and women to find their own voices. Today, she stands not just as a pop singer and songwriter, but as an anthem of hope, proving that music can be a powerful tool for change. Please welcome the inspiring Kaylee Rose.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Rose, and I am in front of my car door right now. Thank you for saying yes, Anita. I appreciate that. I am showing you this because today I was not letting perfectionism get in my way. As an authentic rebel, I figured it out. I pulled over, I poured myself in front of this random park, and I wanted to bring you some inspiration and some empowering music today. So thank you, Anita, for that introduction. My name is Kaylee Rose. I am very proud to now be at the stage in my life where I am able to say that I am a Billboard charting pop singer and songwriter. And I'm also the proud creator of Music with a Message. Music with a Message brings confidence to your audience. So I am going to speak to you today and share my story. But first, I'm going to lead us in with some empowering music. And in the spirit of non-perfectionism, Jen and I tested this sound today, and now I'm coming to you from a different method. So can I get some I'm ready to dances in the chat right now, because I'm going to blare this music and we're going to do this. Who's ready for a dance party? All right, here we go. When I was young, my favorite book was Choose Your Own Adventure. Woo! Now, we're living it, designing our future. We live that comfort zone, cities that put to go. We're young and invincible, the time is now or never. Wheels up, shades down, live a peace unto this town. Life is one big road trip. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. When the world's our playground, here we tearing through the atmosphere like giants on the moon. Facing stars without a fear, 'cause we never ever lose. We're that comfort zone. We're the comfort zone. Let's put this right into high gear, great enough to move. Wheels up, shades down, live a peace onto this town. Life is one big road trip. Here we go. Here we go. Playground. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, playground. Here we go. Here we go. When you are next to me, we reach infinity. We're catching every dream, feeling so wild and free. Wheels up, shades down, so know our names in every town. 3, 2, 1, here we go. Here we go. Hit the open road, we'll make the world our playground. Here we go. Here we go. Adventure in a soul, we'll make the world our playground. Here we go. All right, now that we've got that energy out, I hope you were dancing with me. And if you weren't, that's a different kind of confidence, and that is way okay. Listening to yourself and your choices, that is what I call confidence. And I talk about that with adults, with kids, And it's one of my favorite topics to talk about because for over a decade, I had zero confidence and I hated myself for a very, very long time. So if I could get your permission to take a walk back to 2018, is anybody else willing to go back to 2018 with me? I promise you won't have to live 2020 again. So in 2018, I experienced one of the worst nights of my life. 2018, just in case we're having mic issues, I'm just going to pick this up. In 2018, I had one of the worst nights of my life because in 2018, I was crying on a bed in Ojai, California. And that night was the night that I met Liza. And you might have a Liza that you've met in your life. And if you haven't had a Liza yet, I actually hope that you do. Because when I met Liza, I met someone who was living my dream life. The life that I had tried to manifest, wrote down on paper, did all the things I thought, and the life that I told people I was heading in the direction toward, but that I actually wasn't taking action to get. But Liza did. See, Liza was playing music on her beautiful guitar, singing with her beautiful voice, and she was living music in her life every single day. She was living my dream. And to be in such close proximity to someone who's living your dream is one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. But after feeling my feelings, letting myself get those emotions out, because I do feel it's important to work through those and release them, I eventually realized that meeting Liza was one of the greatest assets I ever could have experienced in my life. Because when you meet someone who's living your dream life, it helps you realize that it is indeed possible. It's not just a childhood dream. It's a reality that you can make happen. Liza had taken the steps to build that dream life. And the good thing about people who are living your dream life is that success leaves breadcrumbs. Liza became my North Star. And I got to follow her and the choices that she was making and the choices she had made in the past in order to build that life for myself. So that is why I am now able to say, I sing for a living, I have music in my life every single day, and I am living my dream. But when it was that bad, it took a while to pick myself up from that. And I went to bed that night tossing and turning and crying and hating myself and hating the choices that I had made. Because I was one of those people that said, oh yeah, I'm a singer. Okay, when's your next show? I'm working on it. Or some other excuse, right? We all do that. We want something and it's good that we share it because we might be talking to someone who can help us make it happen. But the most important key to magic is action. And I kept saying, well, I don't know the steps. I haven't met the right person yet, and all those excuses, right? And some of you might be sitting at home saying, I've done that. If you're really, really honest with yourself, right? I've done that. So once I realized that Liza was my North Star, I was able to start following those breadcrumbs and making similar decisions and studying the heck out of the things that she had done. And one of my secret ingredients to figuring out how to pick yourself up when you are at that low point, when you do not believe in yourself at all, because like I said, for a very long time, I did not believe in myself. I hated myself and I wanted to be someone other than myself. The way that I found the 3 favorite words in my vocabulary are why not me? And I say why not me? Because as soon as you see something that you want, you often feel imposter syndrome come in so quickly that it feels like the truth. It comes in so quickly that you don't even get to hear your instincts. You just hear the imposter syndrome saying, why you? Or not you. That works for other people, but not you. So I combat that by saying, why not me? And then I tack on this word, because then all the excuses are going to come in, right? It's going to say, well, I don't have the money, or I don't have the contacts, or I don't have the training. So many excuses that, again, feel like truth because imposter syndrome, fear in its many, many different cloaks, comes in so quickly that it feels like the truth. We believe it sometimes. We say, why not me? And we say, yet. Because you can change a sentence. It goes from, I don't have the money, to I don't have the money yet. And that yet turns that period into an ellipses. Yet, ... And it lets little windows in our subconscious open up. Because here's a really fun scientific fact. Just holding one positive word in your brain incites your frontal cortex and your motor cortex. Your motor cortex is responsible for action. And like I said, action is where the magic happens. So once you start using that word yet, those little windows in your subconscious open, it's scientific. And then you'll start to ask yourself questions. I don't have the money becomes I don't have the money yet. And then you start to think, how can I get money? How can I get more money? Well, many people are getting money this way, this way, this way, this way. Okay, which way do I want to get money? I don't have the contacts becomes I don't have the contacts yet. And guess what, friends? We are in the digital age. It is an amazing time where you can start commenting on someone's posts and they can start seeing your name over and over again because you're giving them so much value online. You can share their book, so many different things to give them value. And then someday you can offer to buy them a virtual lunch if you're not in the same city, or a real lunch, because most people like a free lunch. I've found. And you can establish a network and expand your network because we live in this magic time. And that's really exciting to me. So yet helps you open those windows to your subconscious. And again, I was going to be screen sharing from my computer, and I appreciate everyone's understanding as I let go of my own perfectionism today, because I would have had a beautiful background and screen share and all those things, but I wanted to be here for you and for my daughter today because I'm a working mom. And I'm going to give you that link, my special favorite exercise in the entire world. Instead of giving you a QR code by screen sharing, I'm going to share this link in the chat. And I want you to right now go to this link, because this link is the link to an exercise that is my most favorite. Oh, I got to copy it after this. Okay, I'll do it as soon as we jump off. This exercise changed my life. I call it the perfect day exercise. When I did this exercise, I was living in New York. I was dating the completely wrong person for me. And I was working at Starbucks. And no shade on Starbucks or people who want to aspire to be a barista. I am not into the latte art. I don't even like the smell of coffee. It was not the right place for me. And I did this exercise, which I'm going to give to you in the chat as soon as we jump off. And this exercise changed my life. It felt like the tectonic plates of the earth shifted to make my dream life come to fruition. It moved me very unexpectedly out of my control from New York to LA. It helped me meet my dream man, who I now have a baby with and one on the way. And it also helped me. I was sitting in my Audi convertible, riding down the PCH or the Pacific Coast Highway in Los Angeles. And I realized, holy mama, it all came true. My convertible was paid for by a commercial. I didn't get specific enough because I wanted it to be an on-camera commercial, but 1 hour of voiceover work paid for 4 years of my life. And that's thanks to this exercise. So that is a free gift that I want to give to you today. There's another free gift in that exercise that you'll find. And I'm so excited to share that with you all. So I don't know if I have a minute or 3. If someone can let me know in the chat, I'll do one more song that is called Stand Up. And I am so excited to hear what this exercise changes in your life, because it was so magical for me. It honestly made me feel like a witch, because I was just like, how did all this happen? And then I stopped manifesting and doing this exercise for a while because it felt so powerful. So I'm very excited. When you do it, I want you to reach out to me 6 months from today. So what is today? February 23rd. I think that's August 2 plus, yes, August 23rd. And tell me how magically your life has changed. And I cannot wait to hear it. We're going to do one more song. I'm going to hold this up so it doesn't affect. But you guys, if I'm running long, just tell me. And this is going to be called Stand Up. And I hope that it helps you stand up today and stand up for your dream life and help you be an authentic rebel. You might not hear the instrumental well, and I apologize for that, but you'll hear me better this time. Here it is. If you could see you like I see you, you wouldn't hide your light. You wouldn't fear the fight. If you could see you like I see you, you'd stand up for your right. and not apologize. When the fight affects your life, you need to speak your mind. It's an uphill climb. Stand up, you deserve to be here. Stand up, oh, this is your year. Stand up, you deserve to be heard. Raise your voices. Stand up. Now I'm going to ask you to sing with me at the end. Get ready. If you could see you like I see you, you'd finally unite. Allies at your side. If you could see you like I see you, generations nationwide will hear your rally cry. When the fight affects your life, you need to speak your mind. It's an uphill climb. Stand up, you deserve to be here. Stand up, oh, this is your year. Stand up, you deserve to be heard. Raise your voices. Stand up. Okay, now this is gonna be your part. And I know a lot of people out there are like, hold on, she's supposed to be the one speaking and singing. But if you do this crazy thing today, this brave thing today, when you lay in your bed tonight, you're gonna be laying there thinking, I got past that moment of discomfort. Cool. What can I do that's uncomfortable tomorrow? Because on the other side of that discomfort is everything you want, my friends. So I'm going to sing stand up and you sing stand up. Ready? Stand up. You deserve to be here. Stand up. Oh, this is your year. Stand up. You deserve to be heard. You can even yell it. Raise your voices. Last time. Stand up. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I will drop that link as soon as I jump off. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, fellow authentic rebels. Woo! I'm glad you're standing.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. Oh my goodness, I start singing and now my dogs are in the background here with a chorus singing stand up as well. So you might hear that through my microphone. As we pause at the halfway mark in our first day of the Authentic Rebel Speaker Series, I am inspired by the depth and diversity of stories and music that we have heard. Our speakers have touched our hearts with their tales of resilience, leadership, and authenticity, and the formative power of embracing our true selves. I would love to hear how you're feeling. If you feel so compelled to share in the chat, words, emojis that share how you're feeling. And as we head into the break, I invite you to reflect on a simple yet powerful question. What is one step that I can take today to feel more like my authentic self? We're going to see you back here in 10 minutes. So that's 4:49. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are feeling inspired to connect even deeper with what empowered authenticity means to you. Now, as we pivot from part one, we're about to journey pretty deep. The next segment is a testament to the depths of human resilience. Prepare yourselves for stories of struggle, of loss, healing, and profound growth. Our speakers have navigated waters that for many of us are completely unfathomable. The fact that they are even here today is an embodied truth that it is possible for the human spirit to weather almost any storm. And take note that these are not just accounts of survival, they are pathways taken to thrive against all odds. I invite you to open your hearts and minds to lessons of resilience and recovery, ready to witness the strength that is taken to turn the unthinkable into the actionable. First up, we're going to have Tori Shack, a transformative advocate breaking down stigmas and teaching resilience at the nexus of mental health and LGBTQ issues. His work aims to revolutionize the discourse and actions surrounding mental health, suicide prevention, LGBTQIA2S+ equity, and gender identity. As a two-time attempted suicide survivor and a recovering drug addict and alcoholic who identifies as a transgender male, Tori's path to self-acceptance and empowerment has been described as one of the gnarliest stories ever heard. Here to tell it himself, please welcome Tori Shack.
Hey everyone, thanks Anita for the introduction. Can you get on the Authentic Rebel? I'm super stoked to be here. First of all, if you're all new to the new Zoom, I don't know if you guys know the reactions, but if you go like this, yes. I'm not sure if you all knew that, but that was kind of mind-blowing when I found out. Anyway, to get on with it, I digress. My name is Tori Shack, and I grew up in Orange County, California. I identify first as a human. Second, I am a transgender male. I'm a two-time attempted suicide survivor. I'm a recovering drug addict, alcoholic, what else? Eating disorder recovery. And I am a person living with mental illness. So I check off all the boxes. So I do have a pretty gnarly story. I don't know if it says the gnarliest yet, but I'm gonna try to condense it into a 15-minute period here for you all. If anyone wants to mark my time, that'd be great. So I grew up in Orange County, California, with a racist, homophobic father and a severely mentally ill mother. I'm the oldest of four. At about 14 years old, I started feeling depressed and started doing drugs, marijuana. Actually, my first entrepreneurial job was at age 14, and that was selling marijuana. So I've been a serial entrepreneur ever since. And I don't know, it's kind of led me down some interesting paths, I'll say the least. I was raised to believe that gays were bad and horrible and should not be on this planet. I was also raised that white is the only race that should be recognized. We refer to every other race in the family by the most derogatory terms possible. So it took me a long time to unlearn racism and also to exert and get rid of my internalized homophobia. At 14, I was started to dabble into drugs. My depression was pretty bad. My dad didn't want any crazy or sick people in his family. So he told my mother she can only take me to therapy so long as she paid cash with no insurance. So there's no ties back to the family as far as having some sick person in the family. So that's how I was raised, just to give you some context. Upon realization that I was gay, in hindsight, I look back after when I was 14, I started realizing, hey, I think I'm gay. I was self-harming. I was doing drugs, severely depressed, didn't see a path, a way out, just saw nothing but pain and anguish, considering the fact that I was raised to believe that I was supposed to, be an attorney, a doctor, get married to a man, have 2 kids, 2 golden retrievers, and a white picket fence. And that just wasn't going to happen for me. And I didn't see any future for myself. So that was my first suicide attempt, my first entry into mental illness and into mental institutions, which this will not be my first time. I go in and out just a few more times. Anyways, after I got out of that situation, I graduated to a meth dealer, started dealing methamphetamines and doing methamphetamines. And, I became aware of my white privilege at this time. This is when I was running with a bunch of Mexican guys and we'd all be hanging out and this happened a number of times. That one time I can specifically remember is I was in a park and the cops rolled up on us and put all the guys into the patrol cars because we all had meth on us. And the cop unclipped my handcuffs and told me to go home to my little daddy. My daddy, little girl, that's what he said. I looked like, I'll show you, just give you some context here. I'm gonna share my screen so you can see what my daddy looked like. Can you guys see that? So that's me with the super long hair, the super long wavy hair in the back standing up. And that's what I used to look like. So, and that's my family. And that gives you any idea of what the quintessential looking Orange County family used to look like or supposed to mold into. Just a little interesting picture there. Anyways, I went to rehab at 17 for detoxing from methamphetamines, and then I went to college and I was diagnosed with panic disorder, depression, ADHD. As you can tell, I still have it. I'm just not medicated for it. And that's when I began my addiction to prescription medication. Opiates, benzos, stimulants, you name it, whatever, and alcohol as well. And that's Riley in the background. I just got her a month ago from the Humane Society. Somehow I managed to graduate top of my class from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and serve an internship in the White House. I'm going to age myself now, under President Bill Clinton in 1998. I'm 45 years old, so my first suicide attempt was in 1993. Anyways, after college, September 11th happened, like right away. So the economy was really bad. There was no jobs out there. I got a job as a membership counselor at LA Fitness, selling gym memberships, drinking around the clock, doing drugs around the clock, participating in horrible activities, and hating myself. I still hated myself. I hated the fact that I was gay. And then my sister said, hey, so and so is making so much money in the mortgage business. Why don't you try getting into the mortgage business? I ended up getting into the mortgage business, and within a couple of years, I started my own company. So about 24 years old, I started a mortgage company on my own, and I had about 50 people working for me, 2 different offices, and making about $100,000 a month, pocketing it. Like, money was just grew on trees. It's heavily into my drug usage, alcoholism, and then at that time, I had a girlfriend who I was with for 7 years. The market crashed in 2008, and I lost everything, including her. I then entered into the fitness business because I wanted to do something that, in case, if money didn't matter, what would I do? So I wanted to become a personal trainer. So I went to Barry's Boot Camp and became a trainer at Barry's Boot Camp. If you guys know what Barry's Boot Camp is, I was trained by Barry, and Barry became my first sponsor in my adult life and got me sober through AA. I ended up becoming a celebrity personal trainer and traveling the Western world with all different artists. And at this time, it was a very pivotal, dark period in my life. I was suffering from deep, dark depression and suicidal ideation and a horrible eating disorder where I would binge, restrict, and then had exercise bulimia. So I was sitting in the car binging right before I go into my sessions with my celebrity clients, trying to motivate them to get skinny for their tour or whatever. So it was a lot. There was a lot going on. I managed to get through it. I just pushed through it somehow, even though I wanted to die every single day. The depression was debilitating, but I got out of bed and I just did it. And then I just go back into bed and just lay there and just, hate myself. In 2009, I was raped by my girlfriend at the time, who I know now to be a sociopath. So, that added to all the other traumas that I had already experienced. My second suicide attempt and my last suicide attempt was in 2010. And I was on tour with a client in a hotel room in New York City. My eating disorder no longer was working. My drug addiction was no longer working for me. My alcoholism was no longer working for me. And I decided at that point that I wanted to end my life. I was in a tremendous amount of pain, suicidal ideations constantly telling me to die, 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 and I attempted my second time. The next day I came to, and my therapist convinced me to enter into treatment program, and I've been sober ever since. So I've been sober now for 13 years, since 2010, from drugs and alcohol. So I had been diagnosed throughout my entire life with bipolar, okay? And my dad said, you're not bipolar. And I didn't think I was bipolar either, because I thought bipolar people were the ones on the street talking to Jesus or thinking they're Jesus Christ. And, you know, so I just refused to accept the fact that was my diagnosis. For 17 years, I was told I was bipolar, and I said, no, I'm not, because my dad said, no, I wasn't. When I got out of treatment that last time, I sunk into a super deep depressive episode for months. I couldn't do anything. I didn't know how to survive without an eating disorder, without drugs in my system, without alcohol in my system. I didn't know how to function. So I ended up going back into a psychiatric unit at UCLA. And I adopted a dog shortly thereafter. Not this one. This is my second one. And I was living with a girlfriend that I met in treatment. Really great idea is to meet a girl in treatment or somebody in treatment and move in with them right away. That's like awesome. Watch this one. Yes. That's like the best way to happiness. It was horrible. Anyway, I ended up homeless, living out of my car to escape that situation. And with my dog Rufus in the car in Santa Monica, California, it wasn't so bad. I'd, wake up to sunrise and whatnot. So fast forward through that, because there's a lot that I have to skip through considering the time frame. And I want to get to what works for me as far as the tools and resources that I use in order to get through my hard days. My recent challenges, well, I can tell you that I got back with my celebrity clients. I ended up traveling again the Western world with clients like Miguel, Lionel Richie. I had the time of my life. It was amazing. I was able to do that sober. With God by my side or my higher power or whatever, like I was able to stay sober through all that 3 or 4 years on the road. And then I've gone through many career changes since then. My recent challenges in my life right now is the last 3 years. My mom died of COVID in 2020, and then I had 3 back surgeries. And then my dad died recently last year, lost 2 jobs. I had to put my dog Rufus down last March. And then I just overcame a recent serious depressive episode. So, life doesn't just get all, this is not like a story where you're like, oh, yay, like I'm a millionaire. Like, this is great. Life is wonderful. That's not how it works right now. Soon I will be a millionaire. One day I will be a millionaire. I was almost a millionaire when I was 24. It will be happening again. And I do believe that. I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. I just have to believe in something that's going to happen, or else why might as well just hop in a box and wait, right? So the mental health tools that I use to get myself out of these depressive episodes, or so I say, when I still have them. I am medicated. I appreciate the fact that medication is not for everybody. However, I can tell you that in 2015, when I was finally diagnosed properly with bipolar type 2, I was not aware there was 4 different types of bipolar. So I don't go into psychosis. My bipolar is called hypomania. And what that looks like for me is I go through super hypomanic episodes that might be like super impulsive spending, super crazy rage, or, just slight hypomanic episodes where I'm still in touch with reality, but I'm just in a different headspace, if that makes any sense. And then I go into some severe, deep depressive episodes for a long period of time. That's called hypomania. And once the doctor described that to me, I was like, oh my God, that is what I've been struggling with all my life. I am bipolar. I just didn't know there was 4 different types. So once I got medicated back in 2016, I'd never been more stable than in my entire life. I've had ups and downs. Of course, medication doesn't just magically make things go away. You have to do things in order to get the mind right and moving. And these are the things that I do. I employ the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Now, this might not be for everybody, but I'm not really good at the whole like, oh, talk to your inner child, like, oh, be sweet, to yourself. I'm actually really hard on myself. It's my dad in my head talking to me. And most therapists will be like, oh my God, that's horrible. Don't say that to yourself, whatever. You know what? I don't give a shit. It works for me. And so this is what I do when I'm in a depressive episode. If I'm laying there for hours, I can't get up. I finally get so sick of myself, and I call myself a little bitch. I'm like, okay, you little bitch, you're going to get the fuck up. Sorry if I'm cussing, if you guys have to turn this off or whatever, but you're going to get up in 5 seconds, and you're going to go get a coffee because that's what you want. And then since you get something that you want, then you're going to have to do something next that you don't want, like pick up your clothes or brush your teeth. So I count down from 5. I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I throw the covers off and I jump out of bed. No matter how heavy, like sandbags I feel, it doesn't matter how horrible I'm feeling, that's what I do. And I'll go to Starbucks, get the Starbucks. Then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go pick up some clothes off the floor. I have OCD too, so there's really no clothes on the floor, but I'm just giving you some ideas. And anxiety. So depression, OCD, anxiety, all the things. Also, in the last 2 years, I went through a gender transition. So 2 years ago, I moved to Reno, Nevada from California, born and raised. And I was 2 years ago, I was she, her. Then I went to she, they, and then they, them, and then they, he, and then he, his. And I had top surgery about 1.5 years ago. Like I said, I also had 3 back surgeries. I'm an avid runner. Running is 100% something that has saved my sanity. The last back surgery I had was spinal fusion about 1.5 years ago, and I've run 3 half marathons since then. It's just my mindset. My doctor even said it's like you have this positive mental mindset that's allowing you to heal and push through what a lot of people would use as an excuse to just lay around and do nothing. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I told him, I'm like, you need to fix me up like I'm Tiger Woods. I'm an athlete. I need to move my body in order to make my mind right. So once I play the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 game, then once I'm up, usually I can get about my day, but it's that whole thing. It's like sitting in a car, right? If you're sitting in a car, you don't put your key in the ignition, the car's not going to start. So you got to put the key in the car and in the ignition. And then once you do that, all you have to do is take your foot off the brake. You don't have to accelerate. What do you do first when you get in the car? To move your car, you take your foot off the brake first. So that's it. Just like little baby steps. Like if you can't get out of the house to get to Starbucks or whatnot, walk up and down your stairs. Do anything. Just do something that's not in bed. Somehow get yourself up out of bed, for even if it's for 5 minutes. I don't care. It works. I maintain a really strict regimen, and that's what works for me. I get up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. I run about 6 miles with a headlamp on, or I'll go to the gym, work out, and in the evening, if I ran in the morning, I'll work out. I'll lift weights in the evening, and vice versa. And I work during the day like a workaholic, of course. Daily exercise is pivotal as far as maintaining my mental health and serenity. I also say when I'm running, I run about 100 miles a month. And when I'm running, I stop when I see a beautiful scenery and I say 10 things I'm grateful for and 10 things I want to manifest. The top things that are on my list for the things I'm grateful for is to have a roof over my head, because I was homeless at one point. And that I have food in the fridge, money in the bank, a car with 4 wheels, and those are the top things that are on my gratitude list. And I have a list of things I want to manifest that I say that I want to manifest in the future. So that's what I do as well. And then food wise, I follow a pretty healthy diet. I do the 80-20 rule. Sugar for me is the devil. Sugar for me will send me spiraling down into the depths of depression and sadness and just horrible feeling and hangover. So I avoid sugar as much as possible. It's been, again, now 30 days since I went back off sugar again. I always try. I'm like, oh, I'll just have a little bit here. It doesn't work for me. It works for you, good, but not for me. I have to stay away from it completely. I take a nap if I'm tired and I am able to, I'll take a nap. Rest is really important. I prioritize bedtime. For me, anything after 8 o'clock, nothing good happens. What really happens after 8 o'clock? That's really great. Nothing. So I try to get to bed before my head starts getting super, super loud early. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of different types of audiobooks, self-help, history, business, you name it, whatever, just to keep my mind, occupied. And I read a lot as well. So I stay busy and active as I possibly can. And when fear kind of creeps in for me, I combat it with gratitude and logic. It's really hard to be in fear when you're in a state of gratitude, or for me, I'll speak for myself. I acknowledge the role of medication for myself and how important it is to maintain that regimen. Like, when I say to people, like, you don't necessarily have to be on it for the rest of your life. And you can say to yourself, oh, I've tried all these different medications. Look, I've tried medications for 17 years and none of them worked until I finally gave that one more try. And that's what stabilized me. It stabilized me enough. Medication for me is what gets me up out of bed. And then it's me that gets me moving, right? So the meds help me stand up. They don't fix everything. I'm not saying to go get medicated. All I'm saying is if you're thinking about it, I'm sure most of you done tons of drugs out there. Like if you're afraid about putting medication like that in your body, then why are you smoking crack 10 years ago? Just to keep things in perspective. My whole goal is also to live without regrets. I don't want to be on my deathbed and thinking, God, I really wish I did that. I want to make sure that I don't have any regrets. I'd rather regret the things I have done than the things I haven't done. And for me, staying alive and staying present involves a lot of philanthropy. I'm on the board of a lot of different mental health organizations. I have a mental health organization myself. It's called Tangible Movement, which I started in 2016 for LGBTQIA and mental health issues regarding youth and resilience. You can check it out at tangiblemovement.org. And then I'll share this with you guys here too. I don't know where it went. It's right here. Just so I think pictures are kind of fun. So this will be the last thing I share, just so you kind of see the transition phases here. That was me at 16. This is me at 39 and me currently at 45. I let my hair grow out, and yes, I had grays. So, it's been quite a journey for me, and it's still continuing. I just started my own company, and it's a consulting company about a year ago. It's going pretty well. It's not as great as I want it to go. I also am working on a tech product, an AI tech product that has to do with debting, and it's a mindful approach to stop compulsive spending. Right now, it's in the phases of a Chrome extension. It's an AI tool. We're hoping to get funded on that in the next 6 months to a year. So I've got things working. I'm constantly moving forward, just keeping busy, and really just believing that good things are going to happen and having faith in a higher power. For me right now, it's the mountains. The mountains in front of me are my higher power. I have these beautiful views of the Sierras. Reno's not what you think. It's actually really pretty where I live. But yeah, live without regrets and aim to accomplish my personal goals. And that's kind of how I am with life. I take my medication as as needed, exercise, eat healthy, and live with gratitude. Thank you.
Next up, we have the privilege of hearing from Latoya Shante Snell, a powerful athlete, an advocate who's reshaping the narrative around fitness and inclusivity. Latoya's journey is a testament to resilience. She's transformed one of her life's toughest challenges into a platform for change. After facing false allegations of cheating in a marathon and enduring public heckling, she didn't retreat. Instead, she rose, becoming a leading voice for plus-size athletes, celebrated in outlets like Vogue and the Washington Post. Today, Latoya will take us through her personal story, examining the complex interplay of body image and intersectionality. She'll delve into the mixed blessings of social media, the hurdles of financial and educational barriers, and the critical issues of accessibility and the power of community support. Please join me in a warm welcome for Latoya Shante Snell.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to jump all into it. So my number one goal is to fail all of you. It's been an absolute honor that by profession, I disappoint people to some degree every single day. And sometimes I get paid for it. Some people know about me because I'm a freelance writer and a motivational speaker, while others know me as a professional loudmouth. Now, in my not so free time, I am a clapback connoisseur. I will remind you to season your food before you try to come for me in the comment section, and I'll inspire you to work out too. We can call it a fitness shuffle with profanity. I can be a little unorthodox, a little untamed, possibly sound like your inside voice hemorrhaging from the outside during a morning meeting. I'll caution you though, that if you decide that you feel inspired or emboldened to borrow some of my tips from this talk, I'm going to tell you buyer beware, because this may come with side effects like job loss or side eyes, boil of anxiety, and the need to hire a publicist. Shout out to my publicist for getting me this talk tonight. But I don't want you to walk away thinking that I ramble just for the sake of rambling, unless that's my neurodivergency leaking out into the company's chat. I always say, or do something for a reason and always for a bigger purpose. And somehow I've managed to use this specific skill set to become a fitness and wellness influencer. I promise you that not all of us are terrible. Um, I've managed to I've pretty much managed to fail people with my business name. Running Fat Chef. It was a blog that somehow turned into a movement and a business that threw me in the depths of becoming an accidental activist. And this was also sponsored by failure. So we're essentially here together because in some way or another, we understand that it takes a lot of courage to wake up and willfully elect to be ourselves, particularly in our work environments. My everyday looks like being a successful failure to those who praise stereotypically fit and traditional looking athletes. I am everything that people associate as the underdog. I'm African American. I'm fat, neurodivergent. I'm a fabulous bisexual, queer, high school dropout who dropped out for 7 gym credits, and I'm chronically ill, and I'm a woman. I'm the person that people oftentimes tell to get off the figurative sofa, even though I kind of don't like the sofa. And when I do it, then cute clothes are oftentimes not made in my size. People will remind me about knee problems that I do not have and shame every ounce of my very existence. I've completed close to 300 fitness events over the span of a decade, and is mostly in the road and trail running community and the ultra running scene. Just for clarity, marathons are 26.2 miles, and ultra running is anything above that. My longest distance to date is 100 kilometers, which is equivalent to 62.3 miles, and it took me a lot of hours to get there. As a 28-time road and trail marathon finisher and a 7-time ultra marathoner, people will still remind me every single day about what they perceive as a shortcoming because they don't think that I deserve to be in the room. I wasn't always this confident in my voice or my presence. I didn't think I deserved to be in any space that hinted that I would find success in the room. When we are commentary, we don't come out of the womb thinking, I'm the worst thing that ever existed. Instead, it sounds more like an infomercial selling weight loss products with the promise of living out the life of your dreams or picking up magazine issues of people who don't resemble you. Perhaps it's a lack of access to people, places, things, or opportunities in turn limiting you from an untapped potential. And then there's harsh commentary that exists, like hearing from your loved ones that people like you should not do, act, or feel a certain way if you desire validation of your very existence. I've borrowed all of this commentary and more for years until I couldn't remember the first time that I remember calling myself ugly or stupid, not capable or worthy. On the contrary, there was it's a little voice that sat in the back of my head that urged me to dream bigger, dig deeper, and lean into the scary things. In efforts of not doing the shitty influencer thing, I will not sell you on a product that's going to magically cure you and is going to make you feel great overnight. Instead, I'll offer you some cringy honesty at my expense. It's one of my specialties. So if there was a soundtrack to self-sabotage that damn near thrived in my head until probably my 30s, maybe a little more or less, I was singing it. So let's go over the track list, okay? So one, I dropped out of high school and I was only missing 7 gym credits. Check. I mastered a routine of being the class clown. Check. Um, Changed my major 6 times in college, and this was a 2-year college, and I walked out with no degree. Check. Being the captain of the secret society of I'm going to lose weight, but I managed to gain 50 pounds club. Check. Let's go into the corner and cry because and I'm going to blame the whole world for my issues. I went double platinum, baby. And postpartum baddie with suicidal ideation, yeah, that's me too. So here's a Snapple cap fact for you. Nobody in this world passed on a comment worse to me than the words I've said to myself. Despite feeling like I was in this bottomless pit, I found love while in high school. We're celebrating right now 17 years of marriage, and thank God I remember that one. Um, Recently we just celebrated 17 years and 23 years of being together. We've met in the lunchroom as I demonstrated how I wanted to stab my French teacher after she kicked me out for the seventh time in a month after ditching her class in high school. He found me attractive as I was sticking it into my lunch tray and demonstrating this to a bunch of my friends. And I wish this was a made up story, but this is very true. We were fortunate to have our son, his namesake, William. He's a rainbow baby. And if anyone's not familiar with that term, that's a child that's created after you lose one. In my case, I had several miscarriages. I stopped counting after four. And I tend to use humor as a way to cope with my everyday life. And this is something that I'm practicing to not do as often. Sometimes we just have to sit in our pain. For a long time, I walked around with a significant amount of physical and mental pain. Despite going to the doctor, I was told that my physical aches was it wasn't nothing. Like, this is just something that's part of your imagination. Um, for some people, they just told me just take an aspirin, um, brush it off. But I don't know how you can brush off nausea, dry heaving, the sweating, the swelling, and not to mention the soiled clothes that occurred when I had my menstrual. At that time, we didn't know what was going on with me, but I'll get there. Everyone told me that it was normal, and so I processed it as it was normal too. So when I would go through these heavy bouts of depression, anger, or at times isolating myself, people told me I should get over it. When I had moments where it would piss me off to be told that there was nothing wrong and I would go off, people would say, you don't even think about how it comes out of your mouth or how people feel. But the truth is, my personal truth, I said, I'm always thinking about how everybody thinks about what comes out my mouth. I've lost countless jobs, missed dozens of opportunities, and this cycle made me feel like I had no control over any aspect of my life. And in turn, I would either sabotage successful situations or talk myself out of doing new things because I was tired of these opportunities being ripped from me. So at least I had control over that. Pain, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual pain, can alter anyone's way of moving through life. But between having my son and not wanting to disappoint my husband, I kept leaning into that small voice that urged me to try. This led to my first set of failures. I started applying to jobs that people didn't think I was qualified for or thought would keep me in a financially compromised state. After all, up until this point, I took everyone else's advice and it wasn't working out for me. So I tried working inside of a correctional facility. Oh, that failed. I worked for a few not-for-profits. Turns out they were really brutal. Managed to get fired from several retail stores after taking up my favorite recreational sport at the time, cursing people out, and then sometimes with a little edge of boxing. This is actually heavily frowned on. And some of the things I had to do after that, after losing so many jobs, was take off the book work. So there were times where I was an office cleaner. Strangely enough, the things that gave me joy all involve movement or art. So when I think back to my MySpace era, I used to write poetry for my computer, and this evolved into performing on open mics, and I was terribly shitty at talking to crowds for a long time. I would rush through the words and I would shake uncontrollably, and then one day it just started slowly slowing down. I started meeting people who essentially became what I call enablers, really good enablers, reminding me to slow down in my delivery, breathe, stop rushing through your words. And one friend said to me as she leaned in, everything doesn't have to end with a curse word, but these days, especially as a loudmouth of a professional loudmouth, I still beg to differ. So through this passion, I remembered one of my childhood dreams, and it was to become a writer. I abandoned hope on this because I dropped out of high school. Who the hell is going to hire me as a writer when I couldn't even finish high school and didn't complete my college education? I put writing on ice for a little bit, and after I had my son, I kept that musing to myself. And then my husband started leaning into photography, and he's so phenomenal with a camera. I took onto this interest heavily as well, but I realized that I had more joy taking pictures of food than people because food doesn't talk back. I threw myself into learning this, but people kept saying that both of these passions don't pay the bills. But that's cool. I'll take my regular 9 to 5 and I'm just going to do this on the side and take on what I call my happy pill. Anyone who knows me knows that my love language is cooking for people, even those who I don't even like. I grew up food insecure, so it's something that I just don't wish on anyone. And in turn, one of my friends, my best friends, extended this opportunity to me to pay for this expensive culinary school that ironically was on Jerry Springer during the commercial breaks. I wish I was making this up too, but this is very true, and the school is now closed. I put aside my pride and I took up that offer, and I couldn't have muster or imagine success for myself still. But as a parent and spouse, I didn't want to be a paperweight for them. I pushed through culinary school despite being sick, still not really having any answers, graduated from the program, and I even spoke for my graduating class. And I was just like, wow, maybe this is a little bit of a mission accomplished. And for a moment, I thought to myself, maybe there's success for people like me. I was able to cook. I was moved up to a line cook, and I moved up in the ranks. And then one day, bam, my health hit me hard. Next thing I knew, I collapsed. They diagnosed me with sciatica, a herniated disc, possible disc degeneration. They found fibroids, 21 of them, and they told me it was normal because unfortunately, this is something that happens a lot to Black and brown women. And of course, they reminded me about my weight. I was this close. I thought to myself, well, this is why I shouldn't have tried. So suicidal ideation, something that I'm familiar with, crept back in and I hit rock bottom. For a year, I didn't desire to do anything but disappear. I love my husband and love my son, but they weren't enough for me to go on. And some would call that selfish, but I call that my personal truth. And it's a lot of people's personal truth. Most people didn't know any of these things because they just saw all the smiles and the hyper independence. I was always the strong friend. And to be honest, I still am the strong friend to many people in my circle and to my following. So one May afternoon in 2013, I saw someone working out on their Instagram feed. The workouts that she did was amazing, and I found myself tapping into the secret society of weight loss, the weight loss club that I abandoned once ago. And I was like, I want to be as strong as her. And for the first time, I was driven by my own desires without interference. Initially, when I said it out loud, people told me that they supported me. And then when I started losing the weight, they started saying you should gain it back. This thing that people sold me on, this weight loss that I ended up losing 100 pounds in a year, turned out it doesn't always come with happiness. I realized in hindsight that what I really loved about her was her smile. She looked so free. She looked happy and content, and it was something I knew nothing about. The great thing about movement, though, was that I was introduced to a range of sports. I've managed to jump out of a perfectly good airplane for fun and fear. I've hiked. I took an interest in calisthenics. I can do clapping push-ups now, and cycling and yoga for clarity. And then I did this torture sport called running. I've been running since 2013, and I took my first race on in January 11th, 2014, with New York Road Runners at the Joe Kleinerman 10K after a group called Black Girls Run talked me out of running a half marathon for my first and only time. And when I hit the last 800 meters, one of my friends started screaming at me to run faster, and it felt amazing. I remember everything pumping through me, and she says to me, "So when are you going to sign up for a marathon?" And I was like, hell no. I'm not signing up for a marathon. But by that point, it was already ingrained in me. I was hooked. I wanted to stay here. I wanted to see what else can I do with this. So fast forward to 2015, I allowed people to tell me that I was not small enough to be a marathoner, and I believed them. So before I knew it, I was in the depths of an eating disorder. Most times when people see someone my size, I'm close to 300 pounds, people immediately think, oh, she's binging. In my case, I want to be able to be the person to debunk that for you today. I have anorexia nervosa, and it is something that honestly never leaves you. Even when you're having these high moments, it's something that never leaves me. So my first marathon was not one of my greatest of memories. I allowed someone else's definition of success to overshadow my accomplishments. I hit this crossroad in mid-training where I passed out while I was still going to a culinary job, and it was the wake-up call that I needed. So without phrasing it in any way, I had to learn how to fail a lot of people to find my success. From that point on, I told myself that I'd move my way. So in 2017, while training for my seventh or eighth marathon, because yes, I kept going. I found out I was carrying twins. I ended up miscarrying, and my best friend failure came back to touch my shoulder again, and this time it was heavy. I was diagnosed with stage 4 rectovaginal endometriosis. I eventually later on found out that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, possible adenomyosis, and gastrointestinal issues, which is something that is actually plaguing me at this very moment. And I was devastated. I was ready to give up on my fitness adventures, my family and friends. Now, some people who were skeptical was just like they were so inspired by my own journey because I had the courage to actually bet on myself. It was like, you should really keep going. So I did. You would think that it would be a happily ever after from here. No, I got heckled at the New York City Marathon that year. I got heckled at mile 22, and the quote was, "It's going to take your fat ass forever." That's all I heard. It's going to take your fat ass forever. And I was like, great. Somebody just said my inside thoughts. That's how I see myself every single day. And I just thought at that point, maybe I could revert to the old me and I can knock this man out and I could go home. But two women came to my side and said, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I decided to go on. But you know, that whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words never hurt me. I think it's a crock of bullshit. So it did stick with me. It stuck with me so much that I ended up writing about it on that crazy name blog, Running Fat Chef. And the weirdest of ways of how life will come and smack you in the face is someone from the root.com reached out to me and they said, we would love to interview you. And I laughed. I thought it was a joke until I looked at the ending of the email and I said, oh my God, this is real. So she ended up, she listened to me and she read my blog and she's like, you're an amazing writer. Have you ever considered freelance writing? And light bulb went in my head and I was just like, I have to take advantage of this moment. If I never write anything again on a professional platform, let this be the one. I ended up pitching this article and the title that went up is, I'm a plus size athlete and I was heckled at the New York City Marathon. They never tell you when these articles are going to go out. So I woke up to being viral. And I'm talking about tens of thousands of people literally reading my article around the world, viral in 24 hours. And I failed again because I ended up losing my job. I ended up losing my job. I had countless interviews. I was on television. I thought the moment was going to pass. I thought people wouldn't care about a fat girl with a profane mouth from Brooklyn. And it turns out, joke's on me. I'm still here, still telling this story. And some people would think that after this is when the happily ever after happens. And then no, that's not where it happens, actually. When people see something that looks different and it looks new and shiny, people love to touch it. And then after a while, they get accustomed to that new and shiny thing. It's not new and shiny anymore. And they want to change it and swap it out with something different. And I am no different. From sharing this story and this experience with a global audience, I've disappointed thousands of people daily. I am not celebrated for being fast or for coming in first place or for shape-shifting my body. Instead, I get countless hate mail on a regular basis. There are times where I read things about myself like wishes for me to die or sexual assault or calling me a failure or accusing me of not accomplishing the things that I've accomplished. Or when I fail hard. And I didn't know how to have a turnaround story for that because when you don't see someone that looks like you don't have a reference point. But here's the thing though, this was the best way that I could have ever failed anybody and disappointed anyone in my life. Because being open about my story, without even knowing it, I became this thing called a disruptor. I give people permission to fail others every single day. And I love it. It gives me goosebumps. Through failing fabulously, I've used my own story to inspire countless people to move, express, and be their most authentic selves in real time. I realized the role model that I was looking for was in my own reflection. And when I thought of a winner, I thought this person had to have the special package, and I thought I could see that, this person was going to be great, but that greatness was in me. And what I realized is that my superpower is to help people tell their own story so they can see that that greatness exists in them. Now, am an influencer, one of the many hats that I have, but I don't sell magic pills. I don't offer you anything on the internet or a promise of being a poster child of success. My marketing strategy is for you to be you, to show up every single day and tap into heart and be you. And don't be afraid to disappoint people. So when I learned how to properly advocate for myself, I learned how to be a better advocate for others. Do I have hard days? Hell yes. Do I have fantastic days? Hell yes. Learning how to fail others looks like going to therapy sessions weekly and encouraging others to do the same and seek help if they need it. Talking about my battles with anorexia nervosa, being a body politics champion, being a thought leader, reminding people that they are more than just their body image and that their neurodivergency is actually a superpower. We just think differently. With this body in mind, I've been featured on magazine covers. I've been in national campaigns. I have a thriving career, and I'm a professional cheerleader. And the beautiful thing about it is this story, me telling my story, I get to use myself as a muse every day. And every time I wake up, I know there's somebody else out there who is taking up telling their own story authentically too. This is not just about me. Whatever weird, strange reason, the universe decided to use me as a muse to inspire others. And it's the best gift that I've ever been gifted with. So I will never sell you any of those things that you see or hear about on social media and about how influencers are trash. I mean, some of us are, we have trashy moments. But I promise you, the only gimmick that I'm trying to sell you is to have this delusional self-belief to believe in yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in to my talk.
One of the threads that I'm seeing here that is really meaningful for me personally across a number of speakers is just how vibrant humans struggle, period, right? And struggle with suicide ideation specifically. I, as well, have struggled with that. We're about to hear from two remarkable mothers, each carrying the weight of an unimaginable loss. Their sons' lives were cut tragically short under different circumstances, but the pain they've endured and the darkness they've navigated binds their stories together. Through the depths of grief, they found a way to light a path for others, turning their sorrow into a force for change. Ann Moss, our next speaker, turned her profound grief into a crusade for mental health and suicide prevention after losing her son, Charles. Her work not only breaks the silence around suicide and addiction, but offers hope and guidance to prevent such devastation in other families. Ann Moss shares her emotionally naked stories because she knows many of us are not living in lollipop land with shiny faces and perfect families. I can't say that strongly enough. Please join me in welcoming Ann Moss, a courageous mother and advocate, sharing her path of pain, resilience, and hope.
So I wanted to share the crisis text line is 741-741, and the suicide and prevention lifeline is 988. And I will confess this time of night, I only have one vocal cord. I'm a brain tumor survivor. So sometimes it wavers, comes in and out, but hopefully you can hear me. It's 2014. I'm standing on the football field. And I'm standing right next to my older son, Richard. And he's a senior that year, and he's on homecoming court. And I look back and I see my other son, who's a sophomore, funniest, most popular kid in school, being escorted by his favorite teacher, Miss Fretwell. And he's laughing and he's making her laugh, because that's what Charles did. picture of my boy, a really big one. And so we're standing there. He's, laughing. And I think to everybody who was looking down at us that day, they thought, man, she's got it made. They have a perfect family. And I will tell you, that day was a proud mama moment. I loved it. But we weren't a perfect family. Our family was actually in chaos. And because Charles's drug use had started to escalate, and what I didn't know is that he was using drugs and alcohol to numb thoughts of suicide. And who would have thought the funniest, most popular kid in school, the kid that made everybody laugh, he was smart, had everything going for him, would be struggling with suicide? Now, I didn't know any of this. All I knew was about the drug use. So his drug use would escalate, and we had to take some really difficult steps. And so he went to Wilderness, and he ended up going to therapeutic boarding school. That's not plan A, right? And today I can't even tell you whether that was the right move. I certainly didn't have the money to do that, but our home equity loan did. And he would come back in 2014, having spent some 22 months outside our home in some kind of placement. And what I didn't know is right when he got back home, he became addicted to heroin. I didn't know it. He did it at night, and that's when I was sleeping. So, of course, I didn't know. I noticed some odd things. He would go to detox, he'd go to rehab. And on June 5th, 2015, the police call. I'm in the back of a police car, my husband's in front, and they deliver the worst news of our lives. And they tell us our son has been found dead. And my husband says, well, how did he die? And I'm thinking, what's a crazy question? How do you think he died? And the policeman says it was a suicide, and the method left no question. My first thought was, how could I be such a crummy mother that my child would leave me that way? But it wasn't about me. My son struggled with unimaginable pain and the physical pain and withdrawal when he took his own life. I didn't understand why suicide, and it would be a long time before I would. I didn't think this would happen to us. I survived a broken neck during a diving accident. I escaped an attack at knife point that was attempted rape and murder when I was 18. I told you earlier I was a brain tumor survivor. I thought nothing else can happen to me because, I got all this insurance. I've already invested in all this terrible stuff. But life doesn't work that way. I did not think I could survive after he died. And I remember curling up on the floor right after it happened, not wanting to wake up the next day, not wanting to kill myself. I'll be honest. I just didn't want to wake up the next day and face all of it. I didn't know what all this looked like. So the first thing I told myself is, as hard as it is right now, and it was brutal, it will never hurt that much again. You've already gotten the news. You'll never get that news again. And that's what got me from 1 hour to the next. So I want to help you understand a process of basically post-traumatic growth. Now, that's a buzzword, right? And I don't love it. There is one word in there I do love, and it's growth. And through our experiences, we have the opportunity for growth. But we know the story, right? You go through tragedy, and then the next thing you know, you emerge a new person and you're Superman. That's not how it happens. You curl up on the floor for 3 years and you cry your eyes out. You don't want to move forward. You don't want to get out of bed, but you do anyway. And you do that day after day. And every time you're curled up in a ball, you let those feelings in because we have to feel our feelings. You must feel your feelings. If you avoid it, you will stay in that raw, ugly place much longer. If you numb it with drugs and alcohol, eat too much ice cream, all of that will delay your progress because pain is the emotional building blocks to healing. Now, I say healing, it's not really like there's an end point where I've reached a day where healed. I will grieve my son the rest of my life. But I have reached a place where I've integrated the loss into my life and I have developed a relationship with my beloved dad. Now, if you'd asked me a few years ago, before all this happened, if it was possible to have a relationship with somebody who was dead, I'd have told you you were crazy. But I actually treasure that relationship. I was talking to him right before the series started because we chat. And thank goodness for earbuds, because otherwise it would look like I was talking to the air. So that feel your feelings thing, I'm going to let you in on a secret. You'll start to feel them come on. First thing, your instinct is, whoo, I don't want to do that. Go towards it, let them in, sit with those difficult feelings. The really, really, really intense ones, the ones that take you to your knees, have you curled in a ball, kicking the wall, screaming and crying. Do you know how long they last? 60 to 90 seconds. You can do that. While you are in that state, you do not give yourself grief. You do not punish yourself. You say things like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm letting this in. I'm feeling this way because I loved so much. Or yes, I've failed, but I'm going to learn from that. That's what that moment is about. And then we'll feel it lift because all feelings are temporary. And when it lifts, that's when you go distract yourself. And I usually do something like this. You've seen dogs do this. Because it signals an end to one emotional state and the beginning of another for me. So what are your healthy coping strategies? And you need to develop a toolbox of more than one. And here's why. I speak a lot at universities. So when I ask anybody at a university, the guys will speak up and they'll say, what's your coping strategy? Guess what they say? Sex. I'm like, okay, what else? And they stare at me like there can't possibly be anything else other than sex. So then I give them an example. You're at Kroger in the frozen food section. All of a sudden you get a panic attack. Is that a good time to have sex? And they look up like, oh, yeah, I might need another one. I've had some people, there's journaling, there's running, there's walking. I was a runner. I'm now a walker. Beekeeping is one that somebody told me about. And then another one was reading fart jokes. Now, the way you figure out is if it's a healthy coping strategy or not a healthy coping strategy. You think, will long-term use of this help me or hurt me? Now, if it's a bottle of wine, well, eventually you could become addicted or dependent, or at least emotionally dependent, and probably gain weight that you don't want. If it's reading fart jokes, hey, that's fine. If it's writing, maybe you end up with a book. So think about what your coping strategies are and start building that toolbox. Number 2, I want you to find support for yourself. A lot of people think, oh no, I can do this alone. But we're human beings. We're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to congregate, be together, and connect. So let's say you feel like you're burdening someone else when you talk to them. Do you know when you put your trust into somebody else, you're telling them you're worthy. I trust you. That makes that person feel really good. You're helping them and you're deepening connections and relationships. So you're not burdening someone else. You're actually deepening a relationship. However, not everybody can sit with you in your tragedy, right? Because there's some people that as soon as you say, oh, I feel so depressed, and they go, oh, you should exercise more. That's not the type of person you want to tell. You want to tell the person who's going to listen. So you want to tell that trusted friend. You want to tell that trusted relative. Maybe it's a group. Maybe it's a support group. Maybe it's your old sorority or fraternity. It could be any group, any person that you feel a connection with. Finally, I want you all to listen. Listening to somebody else is really the greatest gift you can offer another human being. Because you want another person to feel heard. You want to feel heard, right? When you're upset about, let's say you're getting a divorce, and somebody says, oh, you'll find someone else. That's not what you want to hear in that moment, right? You don't want to hear somebody fixing it. You just want to be heard. And sometimes when we say, tell me more, what we need to do on the other end of that is shut up, be quiet, allow for those long pauses and stretches because the other person is processing. There's a lot of beautiful things that happen in that moment of silence if you let it happen. You know, it's funny that it took me decades to learn a lot of these lessons. And when I wrote my first book, Diary of a Broken Mind, I used a lot of my son's lyrics. And kind of ironic, I realized, you know, he kind of knew all this stuff that I was learning as I was writing the book. And as funny and as talented as my son was, you know what his greatest gift was? Listening and letting other people know that they matter. And that is the legacy that I am carrying forward in my son's name, Charles Aubrey Rogers. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ann Moss, for sharing your heart with us and for sharing meaningful strategies that we can use in our own lives when things get hard, because they always do. From Ann Moss's story of advocacy born from loss, we move to Heather Stucke, whose story echoes a similar resolve amidst heartbreak. In 2018, Heather's life took a devastating turn when her son Ryan disappeared. Refusing to stand by helplessly, she used her professional skills to organize a massive search effort, bringing together thousands in the quest to find Ryan. And her efforts didn't stop there. Heather co-founded the Free Bird Project, a nonprofit aiding families of missing persons with essential resources and support. Her capacity to be both a grieving mother and a fervent advocate exemplifies what's possible when personal tragedy finds communal hope. Please join me in welcoming Heather Stucke.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to be here. Do you remember as children, we took such delight in building towers that were precariously high, only to joyously knock them down to the ground? They were bright, beautiful, colorful structures built with creativity, boundless imagination. We put our hearts and souls into the creation only to knock it down and begin anew. There's such limitless potential. Ever adapting, we did it because we could. It was authentically real. But somewhere along the lines, we forgot that childlike joy in building and creating things. We gathered and absorbed experiences, life lessons, external circumstances, whether they were in our control or not, judgment, self-reflection, until we felt weighted down. Movement and change seemed impossible. There was no way forward. We felt calcified. We felt stuck. I think that's what I was, except I didn't know it at the time. You know, I had all these titles. I was mother to 3 imperfectly perfect children, Ryan, Jordan, and Juliana. I was a wife to Scott, a daughter, friend, colleague. My life was ordinary and routine, but it was a life of my own making until it wasn't. On February 17th, 2018, our family received the notification that no parent should ever receive. Heather, Brian didn't come home last night and he didn't show up to work today. We filed the missing person report, and you should be hearing from them shortly. And what that changed your life, you'll always remember the moment that was and what came afterwards. You know, Ryan John Marcus was my firstborn and only son. He was all of these things. He was loyal, he was smart, he was funny, he was mischievous, he was sarcastic, athletic, all of the adjectives that you can imagine. And he had tried to do a year of school, a year of working, and then wanted to have a year of adventure. And he came to me and he said, I want to leave and try working at a ski resort just for the season. And I thought, how incredible. He was very introspective, had the same friends since kindergarten. So for me, this was such an adventure for him, something that you want for your children to have, this sense of exploration, curiosity of the world. And so on December 1st, 2017, he packed up his car and he left our town of Beaumont, Alberta, which is, in Canada, and he traveled 9.5 hours away to the small ski village of Sun Peaks, British Columbia. And for 2.5 months, he was happy. He'd send us texts, probably not as often as he could. He was 20, so probably not as often as I would have as his mother liked. But he talked to his father all the time, and he said he was snowboarding 36 hours straight. He worked as a ski lift operator and was happy to be there. And everything went well until February 17th. February 16th came and it was a beautiful day. It was the same day as ever. He went to work, went and got his regular poutine that he was always interested in, and then went out with friends that night. And then after that, he went to a party. And from that moment, our lives changed. He was never seen again. When we got this notification, my husband and I, of course, not sure what to do, we drove and made that 9.5 hour drive to Sun Peaks. And I remember on the drive there, I was pleading to everything, to every entity that I could think of, bargaining, I'll be a better person. I will do whatever it takes of me. Just please don't take my son. And we arrived in Sun Peaks on Sunday morning. And for that day, there was a search from local police and search and rescue. And they were very realistic about what was happening. They said with the amount of alcohol that he may have consumed, the temperatures, which were about minus 26 degrees Celsius, and the length of time that he's been out in the cold, that the likelihood of finding him alive would be slim to none. And so we were very realistic about what was happening that day. And I remember that night, that first night that they came to us and said, well, we haven't found him. And we've done all the tasks that the police have sent to us. And until there's a change in temperature or in a change in environment, such as the snow melting or anything like that, we won't be coming back. And I remember saying, okay, thanks, I'll see you tomorrow. Because I thought, well, you won't all be there, but there'll be somebody there. I mean, who has a handbook for when your child goes missing? I certainly had no idea. And I just thought in the moment, you know, I can't imagine anybody leaving. They've not found him. I couldn't imagine my son being out in the cold and then someone tripping over him like he was trash. And I don't think I fully recognized the extent of that. No one was going to be there until my husband and I showed up at the makeshift command center that had been turned back into a ski patrol. And there was nobody there. And in that moment, my husband and I, along with our friends, knew that if Ryan was going to be found, it was going to have to be up to us to do the search and rescue. And so from a grieving parent, you quickly manifest into this search and rescue coordinator, under which I had no experience, no bandwidth for anything like that. And for the next 4.5 months, my husband and I lived in Sun Peaks. Our daughters came up. The youngest stayed with us for the most part, but we stayed there and we searched every single day. We had over 1,100 volunteers that came. 70% of them came more than once. We had busloads. We had planes coming up. We had dogs. We had drones. We had helicopters. And we thought, okay, we'll search for him in the snow. And when the snow melts, we'll find him. And as the months went by and the snow started to melt, we thought, okay, we can only stay so long. And we had to make that difficult decision. Do we stay, or it wasn't sustainable to stay? It wasn't with our family. It wasn't with the girls. It wasn't right. And so in June of 2018, we made that decision to go home. And that return home was terrible. I felt like I failed him. My heart felt like it was made of tissue paper. Every time I moved, it was going to tear a little bit more, till there was nothing left, fragment pieces. I struggled to lean into that existence of what life would look like without Ryan. I wanted to know my purpose. Why must I traverse through such trouble and heartbreaking waters? Must my faith, however small and trivial, be the foundation on which purpose places its building blocks? And I struggled with my identity. The roles, wife, mother, daughter, they're all cast into doubt. I was being forced to redefine who I was. But one thing was really clear to me, how I was going to navigate that journey. And I don't know if I knew it right away. You know, Scott, it was that Sunday that we were up there, Scott says to me, the moment they find Ryan, this town is going to see my taillights and I will never come back. And I thought that's a valid comment, right? This town has taken everything from us, whether they knew it or not, whether it was their fault or not, it didn't really matter. Everything was gone from us. And I didn't know how to recoup that. And in that moment after, this outpouring of love and affection from family, friends, the community, strangers, they came. And there was so much love and support. And Scott and I decided to make a pact right there that we were always going to try to look for the silver lining. Because if we didn't and couldn't do that, then Ryan's life was tragic, and I refused to believe that his life was anything but a gift to us. So we looked for the silver linings. I think epiphany comes with frequencies for those who decide to tune in. And what I know about myself now and what I remembered as a child that I think so many of us forget is I was born to create. I was born to destroy. I was born to create again. I faced this pivotal choice to retreat behind grief alone or embrace my vulnerability and authenticity in the face of unimaginable pain. And grief is such a difficult thing, especially when you experience ambiguous loss, which is what I go through, is that I don't have an end. There's no closure. 6 years later, we still don't know what happened to my son. We still have not found him. And I look at grief as you can either face it lying down, kneeling, standing, And it doesn't matter. The world still moves on, only your viewpoint changes. And so I look some days, and there's some days that I can only lie down. There's some days that I can only kneel. And on those really good days, I find myself standing. But there's no rhyme or reason for that. And amidst all of this turmoil and tragedy, I rediscovered my inner strength. You know, vulnerability is about finding resiliency and sharing my story to create space with empathy and understanding. During that time in Sun Peaks, I wrote every single day. So I had 4.5 months of posts that I was doing, letting people know, sharing legacy, sharing Ryan's story, sharing our search efforts. And now Ryan's community has grown over to 62,000 engaged and supportive members that share awareness and create this legacy of love and kindness. Another thing that I did was creating space, was getting with another family, co-founding the Freebird Project. And that is about navigating this loss, providing resources and support to families that are going through similar situations. Because in those moments, you're so overwhelmed with so much information and you don't know which way to turn, and there's no handbook for you. And we thought if we could spare families, give them some support and resources so that they can manage this, then that is a purpose. You know, I will never say that there's a reason why Ryan's not here. I couldn't imagine that anybody would be able to explain it to me, but there can be some purpose in that. You know, through it all, I've also embraced change. I went back to school earning my degree in public relations, and I wrote a book. I took those posts that I did and wrote a book called Missing from Me. And within 24 hours, it went as an Amazon bestseller. And I'm thrilled. But for me, the worst part was not writing the story, what was putting it out in the wild, because there's no way to take it back. There's no way to redo it. But for me, it was so important to share Ryan's story so that long after Scott and I are on this earth and leave this earth, that there'll be a record that Ryan was here, that he existed, that he mattered, and that he had such an impact on not just his family, but his friends and a community of strangers. You know, I know someday that I will stand in front of Ryan. And if there was a way for someone to offer me the gift to change places with them, I absolutely would. I don't think there's any parent that probably wouldn't. And I think that if Ryan had the opportunity to come back, he would see what had been done in the last 6 years. And I think that he would live a little bit deeper, love more, with more abandon, I think. But he's never going to get that opportunity, and neither am I. And I never want to stand in front of my son and have him disappointed in me, and him say that you did not even try to survive or thrive. You squandered what I would have hoarded. I would have done things differently. And you lasted on grief alone. And so that is my guiding source, my lighthouse at the end, that shows a beacon that I need to keep forward, to move forward, never moving on, only moving forward. I like who I am now. I like the person I've become in the last 6 years. I like the connections that I've made with people. I wish it just wasn't at Ryan's expense. But I will never take for granted the authentic me that has risen from the ashes. So I think whether you choose to create life, work, art, chaos, peace, or legacies, there's a beautiful symmetry in the building of this world. And although certain opposing forces bring around destruction, there lies an opportunity to recreate, to show up with purpose and passion, whatever that looks like to you, to be authentically you in the moment that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, for your willingness to share your heart and experience with us. Before we transition to our next speaker, I would like to honor Charles, Ryan, and their families with a moment of silence. This evening, we've gone deep. Our speakers have shared their souls, illuminating very different paths from sorrow to strength. While life may never look quite the same, it's when we find ourselves ready to embrace it anew, to say yes to life again, that myriad possibilities await. And this is the spirit of what our next speaker represents. Jordan Hirsch is a testament to the power of saying yes and to life. With a background that spans management consulting, improv comedy, and public speaking, including being a South by Southwest audience favorite, Jordan is not only a credentialed leadership coach and a trained team development facilitator, but also an embodiment of joy, creativity, and boundless possibility, some of my absolute favorite things. His company, Fish Tree, is more than a coaching, learning, and development company. It's a transformational destination for leaders and teams seeking to reimagine their work and lives. Let's welcome Jordan Hirsch to the digital stage, ready to inspire us with the courage to say yes and to whatever life throws our way.
Wow. Thank you, Anita. I want to meet that guy. He sounds amazing. And I just want to say I'm so excited to be a part of this amazing and inspiring lineup tonight. And compared to some of our other amazing speakers tonight, I don't have an inspiring life story. What I do have for you today is a tool that I want to share with all of you to help you start living more authentically. So with that, do a little screen share here. And I want to tell you about improvising authenticity, or how to yes and your way to an authentic life. So we haven't met. Hello again. I'm Jordan. As you heard, I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, I'm an improviser, a little more on that later. And I am also an expert on leading an inauthentic life. I'm really good at it. I actually did it for years and years and years. And I want to tell you a little bit about the tool that I use to change everything. And that tool is improv. So, great question. I'm sure you're all asking, what does improv have to do with authenticity? Aren't we making it up when we're improvising? Yes, of course we are. And we're also trying to ground the humor that we go for in authenticity. In improv, every choice that we make on stage moves our characters either more closer to being authentic, realistic, grounded, or farther away. And I've learned over the years that the big laughs come from the honest, authentic reactions and choices that you make on stage as an improviser. And all we have to go on, since we're making it up on the spot, is what's come before, what's already true for our characters. Turns out that's true in life as well, right? No one gets a script handed to them every morning. We all have to make our own choices. So since we're all improvising all the time, we might as well use the tools that improvisers use to do their best work. So speaking of making choices, did you think you were going to get out of here without a Brené Brown quote? So congratulations, we've got one. Just like in improv, authenticity in real life is also a collection of choices. I mean, after all, who are we but the sum total of the choices that we make every day? So I love Brené Brown's definition. I have something that I would love to add to it, but I would love to invite folks who are viewing right now, if you would throw in the chat, what would you add to this definition? What does authenticity mean to you? You've been hearing about authenticity for a whole evening here, or an afternoon, depending what coast you're on. Anybody want to add their definition into the Zoom chat? While you're thinking, I'll just say that what I would add is that an authentic life is one where your actions align with your values. Very simple. Oh, Jen, listening to your heart. I love that. Absolutely. Authenticity. This idea of, oh, thank you, Julie, doing any and everything unapologetically. Yes, I love that. Oh my God, very authentic. Very authentic, right? When you stop apologizing for yourself all the time. You heard some speakers tonight talk about that. Being unapologetically me and raw. Donna, that's beautiful. Wearing the clothes that made the 6-year-old me so happy. Anita, I love it. I usually wear like a band t-shirt and a hoodie every day because that is authentically how I feel most me. So I mentioned for me, what I would add to this definition that Brené Brown has given us is this idea that your actions are aligning with your values. Well, one of my big values is optimism. And yet, For years and years and years, I stayed at a job where I did not feel very optimistic. I didn't think it would actually ever get any better. I didn't think I deserved for it to get any better. Who am I to go out and actually enjoy my life? I couldn't even tell you what my job description meant. People would ask me, what do you do at a party? And I would just kind of say the title and then like mumble something and try to change the subject as soon as I possibly could. So staying in a job that you don't like isn't necessarily as inauthentic as, say, keeping a secret family on the side, which maybe some people do, but it certainly wasn't in line with my real values. And I felt that tension every day. And I know that I'm not alone, right? A lot of us make choices every day that do not add up to the authentic lives we actually deserve. To which I say, so what? Who cares? So what if we're not living authentic lives? Oh, I'm so glad you asked, everybody. Well, when you're not living an authentic life, you can end up in the wrong zone. I want to introduce you to the zones that a friend of mine introduced me to a few years ago. Authenticity matters, at least to me, because it can determine what zone you're spending the bulk of your time in. So we start here in the green zone. If we're lucky, we get to spend most of our time here. The green zone is very comfortable. We know what's expected of us. We can handle things in the green zone. We don't really have to stretch and grow. We can just kind of get up every day, do our thing, and go on with life. And it sounds great. It has a hidden pitfall I'll get to in a minute. The yellow zone, as you can see by this little emoji, is where growth happens. Yay, growth. Embracing authenticity tends to land us in this zone as we start grappling with some uncomfortable but probably very important truths. Next one is the red zone. Red is the danger zone. We get here when we've been pulled too far out of alignment with our values, so far that it actually hurts. And back when I said that if you hang out in the green zone, right, the green zone does have kind of this hidden underside, that would be the blue zone. The blue zone is when we've spent too long in the green zone without ever stepping out, and we can actually start to shrink. And when we're out of alignment with our values, it's easy to slip into the red zone or the blue zone. And in the red zone, we feel like our choices have gotten away from us. But in the blue zone, we can feel like we don't have any choices. And it's so insidious because that blue zone can feel comfortable at first, right? I'm doing the same thing I did yesterday. Why does everything suck? Because we can end up feeling like we're stuck there, right? We don't have any choices and we don't know how to get out. And I spent a lot of time in the blue zone. So there is a cost to living inauthentically. Another way to put it is that when we're not living authentically, we're not really awake. And by the way, a certain portion of the audience over a certain age, I won't name any numbers, but may now have this song stuck in your heads if you were alive at the same time that I was, so you're welcome for that. But while we're not fully awake, while we're half asleep, we often end up trading things for authenticity. Things like money or stability or the illusion of stability or comfort. And those things are great things to have, but they're not always worth the trade. So what can we do about it? Well, this is where I'm going to tell everyone to go out, quit your job tomorrow, and start an entirely new life. Just kidding. We can actually use a tool from the world of improv to begin making some small changes that can put you on the path to a more authentic life. So you may all have heard of this idea of yes and before, but I want to talk about what it really means and what it doesn't mean. It is definitely the foundation of improvisation, right? Yes and is how we build something from seemingly nothing by agreeing to what's come before and then building on it. And it all starts with noticing what's true so that we can then build on top of it. This noticing step sounds simple. It's actually really hard. Noticing what's true means accepting what's true. Doesn't mean agreeing to it. All right, accepting where you are is how you start to build a path to what is next for you. It doesn't mean that you're agreeing to stay there forever, but that acceptance is not always easy, fun, or pleasant, right? It's about accepting reality, and sometimes reality sucks. But until you accept it, you can't really do anything about it. So that yes can actually mean saying some scary things out loud, sometimes for the first time, like, yes, I actually do hate my job. Yes, I feel inauthentic in my marriage. I had a client tell me that recently. Yes, I have regrets. Yes, I feel out of alignment. Yes, I am an angrier person than I want to be. There's all kinds of things that we can say once we start noticing and accepting what's really going on and saying yes to it. But once you do, you now have a place you can start building from. And that's a powerful thing to have. And by the way, don't get the wrong idea. This is not about self-improvement. This is actually about self-acceptance, which is a great place to start if you're looking to live more authentically. Because the thing about self-improvement is that it actually is often a mask for self-judgment. And a while back, a neuroscientist named Dr. Charles Lim took a bunch of jazz musicians and rappers and he put them into an MRI machine and he had them improvise. And he learned that when you're creating something new, the part of the brain responsible for self-judgment and self-censorship actually shuts down. Because when that part is active, the creative parts of the brain can't function effectively. You can't create something new and judge yourself at the same time. We all try to do it, but it doesn't work. So what that means is that you can't try new things when you're busy judging yourself. And if you want to make a change, you're going to have to try some new things. And if you're judging yourself the whole time, it's not going to go very well. So that's why this yes is so powerful. So I want to invite everyone to take a second. Let's just take a minute. And I want to invite you to write down a place in your life where maybe you feel out of authenticity, where you're not being your authentic self. Just jot it down. Start with the word yes, so that you remember that it's actually true. If you're feeling brave or bold, you can put it into the Zoom chat, but you don't have to. Just write it on your own. And I should have brought background music for this part, so feel free to just kind of hum to yourself while you're writing. And I'll give everybody about 30 more seconds. I can't see people in this webinar format, so I don't know if people are actually writing, and I'm very curious. So if you're actually writing anything, will you throw something in the chat and tell me if you're doing it? Thank you, Anita. Anita's writing. Awesome. Take a few more seconds. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you, Hector. Oh, beautiful. All right, people are actually writing. I love it. By the way, this part can suck because it's basically having to start accepting something that maybe you don't like to say out loud, right? There's a reason we don't go around just telling strangers like, oh, hey, I'm out of authenticity in my marriage right now. Do you want to hear? No, you don't. You just want my coffee order? All right, that's how it's going to be. So if this is uncomfortable, thank you. Thank you for doing it. And it probably means you're doing it right. Thank you, Claudia. All right. Nice breath. Once the painful part is over for now. Let's talk about the and in yes and. The and here is about, oh, Donna, thank you for sharing. Yes, I speak my mind too much, but with sugar-coated verbiage. Ooh. All right. So it sounds like maybe a little bit out of authenticity there. Well, let's see what we can do about that. So the and in yes and is about building one choice at a time, right? Remember all those choices we talked about earlier? Building is very important because it can sometimes feel like in order to be authentic, the message is like, well, just go change everything in your life all at once. That's a really overwhelming way to approach change. It's also not how buildings get built. And buildings, I think, are a helpful metaphor here. In improv, we have this saying where we talk about bring a brick, not a cathedral. On the improv stage, what that means is just bring one idea at a time so that your scene partner can build with you. You don't have to invent an entire story. In life, that means you only need to come up with one idea at a time, one choice at a time to start living more authentically. Bringing one brick at a time is a great way to make change feel safer and approachable, right? Each brick is not a lifelong choice and commitment forever. Each brick is an experiment to be learned from, right? Despite being bricks, they're actually not set in stone. So, yay, it's writing time again. Let's take another minute, and this time I want to invite you to write down a few and steps you could take. These are not commitments. These are possibilities. Think about What would one step towards a more authentic life look like for you? But it's totally okay for this step to be super small, right? Maybe it's a relationship where something needs to be said. If it's a change in how you show up somewhere in your life, maybe it's having that talk with your boss, updating the resume. It could be anything. And if you are so moved, I would love to see if people would throw some of these possibilities, some of these bricks into the chat. This is probably the only time today someone will ask you to throw a brick, but go ahead and throw your bricks into the chats, because then we can see a little cascade of possibilities, which is pretty fun. I'll be quiet now so you can write for a minute. Oh, Claudia, that's beautiful. Claudia shared, to be as kind to myself as I am to others. And some days it is hard. It's very hard. Anita shared, get out of the house and around awesome people and ideas more often. These are great possibilities. These are even so, Claudia, you, not to call you out, but you said, be as kind to myself as I am to others. And I'm going to invite you to think of what is actually one tiny way you could do that. One small way to get started, one little brick. Here comes the fun part. Remember how I said these weren't commitments? Well, what if they were? What if we made one of them a commitment? So I'm going to invite you, if you actually wrote down some steps, pick a step you could do in the next week. All right, it's Friday. You got the weekend coming up, a week ahead of us after that. Pick a step that you could do literally in the next week and commit to actually taking that step. And if your heart just started beating a little faster at the thought of doing that, congratulations. Welcome to the Yellow Zone. We're happy to have you. By the way, if you need support right-sizing that commitment and actually following through on it, I know I did. I worked with a coach, and that changed a lot of things for me because this stuff is hard, right? I can tell you this kind of support is one of the most valuable things that I got out of working with my coach. Oh, Hector needs to have some hard conversations. Claudia is going to smile at myself every morning in the mirror. That's beautiful. Taking this leap is scary, and it can be helpful to know that someone has your back. So in improv, before we go out on stage and start yes-anding each other all over the place, we actually pat each other on the back and we say, I've got your back. Now, when I first envisioned this activity, I didn't know we wouldn't be able to see or hear each other. So we're just going on faith that everyone's going to do this. But I want to invite everybody to reach your arms out to the side like so. And I'm going to count down from 3. And when I do, I want you to pat your virtual neighbors on the back and say, I've got your back. Ready? 3, 2, 1. I've got your back. Feels pretty good, I think. Even if you can't see each other, it feels good to just say it. But what happens once we say goodbye tonight? Who's going to have your back once this little group is gone? So for that, let's get another dose of inspiration, this time from a song that came out in this century. Ariana Grande tells us to be our own bleeping best friend. Well, being your own best friend is kind of like having your own back. So I want to invite everyone to do something super cheesy with me, raise an arm. And when I count down from 3, this time I want you to pat yourself on the back and join me once again in saying, I've got your back. Ready? 3, 2, 1. I've got your back. I actually come back to that often. Throughout my week, will often have to pat myself on the back and say that to remind myself that the scary thing I'm facing is possible because I'm going to be my own best friend. So whatever happened to that guy from the beginning? Well, as I mentioned, he worked with a coach, started making some changes. That job that he couldn't describe, he quit. Not all at once. Took a while, but he took a lot of small steps to get there, but he did it. He can describe his job now. Feels pretty good. He went on his own. He's building his own business, one choice at a time, one scary choice at a time. He's still not an expert in living authentically, but he's getting better at it. And as you can see from this clearly representative photo, he's a lot happier now. And he's still yes-anding. So for example, yes, he spends a lot of time in the yellow zone these days, and his daily life is now really well aligned with his core value of optimism. And that's why he's giving this talk, because he and I am optimistic that all of us can live more authentic lives and that we can get there one choice at a time. So with that, thank you. and I've got your back.
Thank you, Jordan. Oh, I love that. I'm like, I've got my back. We've got each other's backs.
Heck yeah, we do.
Wow. Thank you, Jordan. And thank you all for an amazing first day at the Authentic Rebel Speakers series. As we close out part one, I am filled with gratitude for all our shared moments, the ones that made our hearts swell and the ones that made our hearts weep. I'm grateful for all the love, the laughter, the real raw honesty that we experienced here today. And more than most, I think that the Authentic Rebel is a community that honors the wide emotional, social, spiritual, physical range of the human experience. And I, for one, am grateful that we have places like this where we don't have to pretend that life is always vibrating on the frequency of all-out awesomeness all the time. And we can still leave room for all-out awesomeness because it does exist. It's a lot to hold, but that's why we have community. We don't have to do this on our own. Earlier, I asked you to think of one step you could take to feel more authentically like yourself. And I'd like to build on that. Yes, and. Before tomorrow's session, can you think of one person who makes you feel more authentically like yourself? And is there one thing that you can do to nurture that relationship? Tomorrow, you can expect another authentically rebellious day of incredible speakers. Our lineup includes a double transplant survivor, a breakup artist, an expert in intergalactic contact. I said that. And an ex-con, just to name a few. If you can't make it live, don't worry. We will send a replay link afterwards. But until then, thank you, take care, and I'll see you soon.